Panandaliang katahimikan po para sa maikling dasal sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen. O Amang makapangyarihan, gabayan mo po kaming lahat, lalong-lalo na po ang mamamayan na aming kinakatawan, ang sambayan ng Pilipino na tunay naman na umaasa sa tulong po ng Department of Foreign Affairs para pangalagaan ang aming mga minamahal na kapatid na OFW, lalong-lalo na po ang integridad ng aming minamahal na bansang Pilipinas sa mata po at sa pag-iisip ng buong mundo. O mahal na Ama, nawa po sa pamamagitan ng Department of Foreign Affairs ay maging taas no ang bawat isang Pilipino, maging malakas ang loob, may pagmamahal sa sariling bayan, may nasyonalismo, at higit sa lahat, taas noo na makakaharap sa lahat ng mamayan ng ibang bansa na tayo ay Pilipino, kami ay mahal ng Diyos, at ang mga Pilipino ay pinagpala. Sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen. Comsec, maaari po bang banggitin po natin ang pagtawag ng ating mga miyembro ngayong araw na ito. Congressman Dalipe, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to suspend the calling of the roll.
There's a motion to dispense with the calling of the roll. Duly seconded. Hearing no objections, motion is carried. Comsec, pakibati po ang ating mga kasama na membro sa briefing po natin ngayong araw na ito at mga kasama po natin via Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. May we acknowledge the members who are physically present at the Morales Hall. Deputy Speaker Dan Fernandez, Vice Chair Jonathan Alvarado, and Vice Chair Manix Dalipe. Mr. Chairman, we also acknowledge members who are with us via Zoom video conference. Vice Chair Manuel Sagarbarria, Vice Chairperson Lorna Bandigan, Representative Ann Hofer, Representative Alyssa Sheena Pitan, Representative Arnold Noli Celeste, Representative Maricel Natividad Naganyo, Representative Joy Mayra Tambunting, Representative Hector Sanchez, Representative Francisco Kiko Benitez, Representative Manuel Cabuchan, Representative Vicente Ching Veloso III, Representative Macnel Lusotan, Representative Roman Romulo, Representative Dalia Loyola, Representative Edgar M. Chato, and Representative Rufus Rodriguez. The committee also welcomes and acknowledges the officials of the Department of Foreign Affairs who are present right now. We have Undersecretary for Administration, Eduardo Malaya, Undersecretary for Migrant Workers, Sara Lu Ariola, Assistant Secretary, Office of Consular Affairs, Neil Frank Ferrer, Assistant Secretary, Office of Financial Management Services, Myla Grace Rohena Makahilig, Assistant Secretary for Legislative Liaison Unit, Voltaire Mauricio, and Assistant Office, and via Zoom, we are also joined by our Secretary of Department of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Chodoro Luxin Jr., Undersecretary for Civilian Security and Consular Concerns, Brigido Dulay, Undersecretary for International Economic Relations, Lourdes Iparige, OIC Undersecretary for Policy, Elizabeth Buensuceso, Undersecretary for Strategic Communications, Ernesto Abella, Undersecretary and Executive Director, Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces, Pedro Rambuanga Jr. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Comsec, at maraming salamat po sa ating mga member na umattend ngayong araw na ito, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga panauhin mula sa Department of Foreign Affairs, sa pangunguna po ni Secretary Locsin. At sa kaalaman po ng lahat, tayo po ngayon ay live napapanood sa Facebook page ng House of Representatives ng ating bansa, gayon na rin sa Facebook page po ni Speaker Alan Cayetano at ng inyong abang lingkod, Kuya Jonathan C. Alvarado. Gayon din po, sa atin po nga mga nanonood sa araw na ito ay may mga pili po tayo at sa katunayan binabasa po natin palagi ang mga comments ng ating mga kababayan na nanonood. At dahil DFA ang usapin ngayon, may mga nanonood tayong kababayan mula sa London at meron din sa Hong Kong na mga nanonood, mga OFW natin to. Talagang naghihintay sila ng magandang usapin tungkol po sa budget ng DFA. At sana po sa ating mga kababayan, maayos sana ang inyong kalusugan, lalong-lalo na ang inyong mga hanap buhay saan man, sa anong panig man ng ating mundo, lalong-lalo na yung ating mga kababayan na na-stranded na gustong umuwi sa ating bansa. Binabati nga rin po pala ang pagdating ni Congresswoman Jam Baronda, gayon din ang tagapagtanggol ng Consular, Deputy Speaker El Rey Villapuerte. At gaya po kanina, tayo po ay sinamahan ni Dine Einstein Fernandez at ng ating sobrang sipag na Vice Chairman Manix Dalipe. Sa atin po mga kasama, magsisimula na po tayo ng oras natin sa pagtatanong sa pamilya po ng Department of Foreign Affairs. At kagaya po ng ating nakaguluhan at tradisyon, inuuna po natin pagtanungin ang minority. At una po na magtatanong ay si Majority Leader Benny Abante. Minority Leader Benny Abante. Bishop Benny, nandiyan ka ba? Habang hinihintay natin si Bishop Benny, yung mga taga-Italy, ayan, nanonood rin po sa atin ngayong araw na ito. Bishop Benny Abante. At si Juan Paulo Santos, ayan, nagpapabati sa atin. Habang po wala si Bishop Benny, ang magtatanong po muna ay si Deputy Minority Leader Carlos Zarate. Congressman Caloy? Nagkakarinigan po ba sa Zoom? Congressman Caloy? Sa Kuwait po at sa Singapore ay may nanonood rin sa atin. Sana po ay magsagutan po ang ating mga tagapagtanong ngayong araw na ito. Ang tatawagin naman po natin na magtatanong ay si Representative Arlene Brosas mula pa rin sa minority. Congresswoman Arlene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ayan. Congresswoman Arlene, maaari ka na magtanong at maraming nakikinig sa iyo mga kababayan natin. Mula sa London, sa Kuwait, sa Singapore ay pinapakinggan kan lahat, Congresswoman.
Maraming salamat po. Mr. Chair, may mga naiwan akong questions on the DFA, no? Particular po tungkol sa mga migrants issues. The DFA has promised the protection of rights and promotion of welfare of overseas Filipinos. What is the plan for the remaining thousands of stranded OFWs natin who are in need of assistance, and what plans are in place to ensure safety of overseas Filipinos, especially those who are in countries most affected by COVID?
Secretary?
Yeah, one is we have last count 177,000 still to come. We have 180,000 who arrived already, and our plan is to bring them home. Any delays in that plan comes from two things. One is we are limiting, not us, but IATF is limiting the number of flights coming into the country and the number of people who are coming in, because sabi nila kailangan na matest sila, because otherwise their own provinces will not accept them. But that's fine. Ang job ko is to keep fighting AITF to keep lifting the limits. The more who come, the better. And the faster they come here, the better. Kasi ang isip ko ito, you cannot say that OFWs there, you wait first until there is room in the airport to test you. Where will they wait? In the Middle East, they will wait in the desert. So to me, they just have to keep coming in. And when it comes to our capacity to test them for COVID, well, I think that's already our fault. We able to test them all. So The question is, what do we do with them? Well, one, we have the ATN fund, and hopefully we get their salary to help them also, the assistance to nationals. But the other one is definitely we are taking them home. We take them home by commercial flights or by charter flights. If there's no,
Mr. Chair,
okay.
tanong ko po kung ilan pa yung stranded natin na nasa labas kasi we have reports of yung mga OFWs po na nasa mga cruise ships at yung mga hindi rin known na ships. I believe meron pa pong stranded sa China. Yung merong mga ilan tayong reports na pinifreezer yung mga bangkay dahil hindi makababa sa Pilipinas at kailangan ng intervention ng ating gobyerno para sila ay makababa at yun lamang yung magagawa ng DFA dahil state to state yung pag-uusap, Mr. Chair.
Secretary?
Yes, especially the ones in China, I know that we are bringing them home. They are 11. As I said before to you, I said, believe me, Filipinos are coming home. It's either the entire consulate comes home or the stranded Filipinos come home. I'm not taking any excuses. So they are coming home, and Sarah knows the specific, she actually knows more people who are stranded outside. You can ask her about it. And the instructions are there, and it's not just verbal.
Secretary, kikilalanin ko po muna si Yusek Sara upang magpaliwanag. Yusek Sara?
Magandang hapon po, Mr. Chair. Doon po sa China, meron po tayong naka-schedule na flight this September 28 para po umikot at kunin yung mga stranded doon. Kasi nasa iba't ibang lugar sila. Sila yung mga nasa cruise ships. Ginagawa po natin lahat natin makakaya para payagan po tayo dahil naghigpit na nga raw po talaga din sila ngayon sa mga sa paglabas ng mga repatriation flights. Mas maluwag nga raw sila nung time ng Wuhan because ngayon may mga commercial flights na going to and fro. But we're doing our best, Your Honor, para maiuwi po sila. At lahat po ng mga Pilipino na nasa stranded sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo. Ano lang po talaga, yung main challenge po sa atin, syempre kailangan po talagang payagan tayo ng country of destination para makapasok po yung mga eroplano natin sa kanila.
Yusek Sara, ano po ba yung kaganapan sa Syria ngayon? Kumusta yung mga kababayan natin dun sa Syria?
Your Honor, sa Syria po, nag-close talaga. Ang problema po kasi yung Lebanon mismo, sir, nag-lockdown dahil after nung pagsabog, kumalat lalo yung COVID, which is understandable dahil lahat ng mga tao medyo nawala rin sila sa kanilang parang marami po talagang nataranta because of the explosion. In fact nga po, marami sa ating mga kababayan na na-infect. Kaya yung iba, pinapagamot muna natin bago natin i-repatriate. Wala pong flight na pumapasok sa Syria. They have to travel inside Lebanon. So yun po talaga yung main challenge doon para makalipad po sila. Pero as soon as po the lockdown is lifted at kaya po natin silang ilabas, isasama po natin sila dahil patuloy po yung repat natin na mula sa Lebanon.
Yusek Sara, meron ba tayong tulong na maibibigay sa ating mga kababayan sa Syria para matulungan sila na mula Syria ay makapunta sila ng Lebanon?
Sir, gagawin po natin lahat ng ating makakaya upang mailabas po sila kasi they have to cross the border, sir.
Yun nga po yata ang problema hindi makatawid ng border yung marami sa ating mga kababayan, Yusek.
Yes, sir. We have to make representations to both countries, sir, na payagan po tayo maglabas ng ating mga kababayan. Yung isa po talaga parang nagiging problema, sir, dahil dun sa Syria, kalat-kalat din po sila na lugar, tapos wala po talagang naglaland na eroplano inside.
Pwede po ba nating marinig si Secretary Locsin kung anong hakbang ang gagawin ng DFA para sa mga kababayan natin sa Syria? Secretary Locsin?
I'll make representations with the Syrian embassy and the Syrian foreign minister if necessary. I think we can get them out if no flights. It's a war zone. If no flights are available or it's not too safe, then we'll get them out by land. Sa Tripoli, that's how we got them out when they wanted to go out by land. Doon sa Tripoli ayaw nila because they are well paid or in some cases the hospitals cannot complete their payments. No? But whatever it is, we'll get them out. If they have to get them out by land, they will. And our consulates and embassy personnel will accompany them.
Sa mga kababayan po natin na naiipit sa Syria, lalong-lalo na yung mga nanghihingi ng tulong sa atin, narinig niyo po yung napakaganda pong pahayag ni Secretary Locsin. Babaligta rin po ni Secretary Locsin yung bato at lupa at ilalabas talaga kayo kahit gaano kahirap po yung pagdaanan dyan. Ang pagkakaintindi ko po sa sinabi ni Secretary Locsin, gagawin ng lahat upang mailabas po kayo dyan. Ingat lamang po tayo. Yes, Congresswoman Arlene, pakituloy na po ang iyong pagtatanong.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, tanong ko po doon sa kung sinabi kanina 177,000 yung tama po ba? Yung stranded na kailangan pabalikin natin. Okay, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Sa stranded po na mga ngayon doon, ano-ano po yung mga assistance na nabibigay natin, Mr. Chair?
Secretary Locsin.
Sarah, please.
Yusek Ariola.
Your Honor, we are giving in places where there are no POLO and OWA offices, which are 64 posts, Your Honor. Welfare assistance is being given by the DFA. In places po na may welfare assistance naman na binibigay ang POLO at ang OWA, pure repatriation po. But so far, Your Honor, we were able to bring home 185,000, as of today pala, 650, yun po yung latest na figures po natin. We were able to charter 47 repatriation flights and 600 commercial flights po yung na-facilitate ng DFA na pumasok sa Pilipinas. We are hoping really, Your Honor, that our SARA will be released so that we can charter more flights because there are many more Filipinos who are waiting to be repatriated.
DBM, kami
Mr.
po ay
Chair.
nananawagan sa DBM, ilabas nyo na yung SARO ng DFA. Kawawa yung mga kababayan natin na naiipit sa ibang bansa. Kami po ay nakikiusap, please, ilabas nyo na po yung SARO na kailangan ng
Mr.
DFA. Hindi po madali yung pinagdadaanan ng mga kababayan natin. Sandali po,
Chair,
Congresswoman Arlene, kilalanin ko lang po sandali. Maaari po ba nga ipasok ko lang sandali si Deputy Speaker Villapuerte? Congresswoman Arlene?
Mr. Chair, in relation to that, we would just like to put on record that in Bayanihan 2, this body initiated and tayo po ang nagtulak dito sa House under the leadership of Speaker Alan na malagyan po ng 820 million ang DFA under the Bayanihan Fund to enable them, empower them na ma-repatriate na po ang ating mga kababayan na na-stranded dahil sa COVID and others. At nakalagay po sa batas na bayanihan na naapropado na po ng ating Pangulo, it is effective immediately, meaning hindi na kailangan ng publication. So tama po yung panawagan nyo, Mr. Chair, na sana ma-release na po ang SARO in regards to the 820 million lodge sa DFA na kailangan po ng ating mga kababayan yan para makaresponde po ang DFA. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Speaker, Congressman El Rey Villapuerte. At siyempre, pinapasalamatan natin si Pangulong Duterte kasi sinuportahan niya at pinirmahan niya yung Bayanihan 2. Nakapaloob po dyan yung ipinaglaban ng Kongreso sa pangunguna ni Speaker Alan Cayetano na Repatriation Fund, pondo pagpapauwi. At kung hindi pa ako nagkakamali, ay libreng pagpapauwi sa ating mga kababayan. Yung mga nagtatanong po sa akin sa comment, libre ba ang repatriation? Opo, kung na-stranded po kayo, libre ang repatriation. Tama po ba kahit na tourist visa sila, libre? O Yusek Ariola?
Yes, Sir Honor. Marami po tayong mga ganyan na kababayan na gumamit ng tourist visa. Actually, marami po sa kanila victims ng trafficking and persons. Considered pa rin po silang OFWs na undocumented and traffic persons. Kaya libre po yung kanilang repatriation, ang kanilang swabbing, pati po yung kanilang quarantine. Libre po lahat yan.
Libre po lahat sa ating mga kababayan. Inuulit ko po, libre po lahat kahit po tourist visa kayo. Libre ang inyong repatriation. Congresswoman Arlene, salamat sa pagpapahiram mo ng konting oras kay Deputy Speaker El Rey. Pakituloy na po ang iyong pagtatanong.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, ang tanong ko po, very particular and very concrete na tanong ng ano-ano yung mga welfare assistance na naibibigay sa mga OFWs na stranded. Kasi po, ang problema nila kapag pupunta sa mga embassy, pinababalik-balik sila doon, yun naman yung mga nagiging problema eh. Tapos may mga documents na kailangang dalhin, ibigay sa embassy. Tapos hindi nila yun magawa-gawa, wala silang pera, wala silang pamasahe, wala silang pagkain. Ano po yung mga concrete assistance na very particular na binibigay ng ating DFA sa mga stranded na OFWs? Magkano po, halimbawa, sa pagkain? Magkano po para sa ganito, para sa kung ano pang assistance? Cash
Secretary,
assistance.
Secretary Locsin.
Sarah, can you detail all the assistance we're giving? Because I want to make sure that that's concrete. And as for delivery, I can assure you that we expect our people in the foreign posts to be on call 24/7.
Yusek Sara.
Their telephones are supposed to be on and never on silent. We do not accept any excuses. Yung noon, sinasabi nila kung may COVID, they will close the foreign post. I said no. If they have COVID, the COVID victim is taken out, the rest stay there. Because that's no excuse not to work.
Tama
Diba?
po yun.
And I
Tama
don't
po yan,
want
Mr.
to
Secretary.
lost an ambassador because of that policy that we have adopted.
Mas lalong nangangailangan ng tulong ating mga kababayan, mas lalong kailangan talaga ang Department of Foreign Affairs. Yusek Sara, pakipaliwanag po ang mga ayuda at ang mga tulong na maaaring maibigay sa ating mga kababayan.
Your Honor, meron po tayong medical assistance doon po sa mga nagkakasakit. Secretary Locsin has been very generous na kahit milyon po inaabot ng kanilang medical bills, binabayaran po yun ng DFA. Aside from the medical assistance po, meron pong welfare assistance. May mga pagkakataon po rin kasi ma'am, na iba-iba po yung pangangailangan ng mga OFWs sa welfare assistance. Yung depende po talaga kung magkano yung kailangan nila at kung talagang wala silang pagkukunan, binibigay po natin yun. Doon po sa mga yung mga relief goods, nagbibigay din po ang DFA kasama po ang Polo at ang OWA po sa aming mga post na nandun sila. At doon po sa mga wala, purely DFA po ay nagbibigay niyan. Nagbibigay rin po kami ng shelter doon sa mga wala na po talagang pwedeng puntahan. Sa katunayan po, nagkikipaghati ang DFA with Polo sa mga shelters namin sa UAE, sa pagbabayad po. At yung mga nagkakasakit po, tinetest din po sila ng RT-PCR testing at binibigyan din po sila ng quarantine site. Nangyari na po yan sa Jeddah. Nung meron po talagang na-infect na mga wards, kaya kailangan po silang ipadoktor at ihiwalay. Malaki rin po yung, I think it's over 5 million po din yung ginastos ng DFA para dyan po. Actually po, yung at meron po kaming other meritorious cases kasi iba-iba rin po talaga yung pangangailangan ng mga OFW. Pag nakita po namin talaga na kailangan namin silang tulungan, binibigyan po namin yun ng tugon. At higit po sa lahat, meron po kaming legal assistance fund. Nagiging problema po talaga siya sa Middle East dahil yung mga tumatakas po nating mga kababayan, kadalasan po sa kanilang mga amo, fina-filean po sila ng mga theft cases at kung ano-anong mga kaso, kaya hindi sila makalabas ng bansa. Kasi kailangan po nila ng exit visa at dahil dito po, kailangan po natin sila kunan ng abogado para makauwi po sila.
Congresswoman Arlene, huling katanungan po.
Yes, Mr. Chair, kung meron pong report na particular ang DFA kaugnay sa mga naibigay nila simula nung yung COVID response nila sa mga binanggit na from medical assistance, welfare assistance, relief goods, shelter, legal assistance, kung magkano po yun sa actual yung na-release na, tapos kung ilan po yung mga naipamahagi nila na mga assistance na yun sa ating mga OFWs. Kung pwede po bang makakuha ng kopya ng report ng DFA kaugnay dyan. Mr. Chair, may dalawa na lang akong hihilingin pa na mga datos.
Sige po, ituloy mo po yung mga datos.
Kasi, at saka, Mr. Chair, yung breakdown po, halimbawa, sa welfare assistance pala, nung halimbawa sa relief goods, ilan, magkano, ganun po yung gusto natin na detalye. Kaugnay po sa NTF-LCAP, meron pong kumukuha ba ng funds ang NTF-LCAC, Global PNP Community Relations sa budget ng DFA? May breakdown po ba yung funds na ito? Pwede po bang maipasa sa atin yung breakdown ng funds na ito para alam natin kung saan ginamit yung pondo? Yung isa pa po ay kaugnay naman sa passport renewals. Yung fees collected from passport renewals, authentication of fees, other fees collected from overseas consulates. Kasi po, yung passport fee natin, twice or thrice more sa labas ng bansa kesa dito. Kaya gusto po nating malaman yung kung saan napupunta yung fees collected from this passport renewals, authentication, etc. Yun, Mr. Chair, pwede po bang humingi ng mga datos kaugnay dito, ng mga documents at maipasa sa atin, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Secretary, marami-raming datos po ang hinihingi ni Congresswoman Arlene. Maaari po ba nating maibigay ang datos sa komiting ito?
All of those details will be given to you, and I want to make sure it's as detailed as possible. When I was a congressman, I was defending the budget of energy. I think it was group that asked, si Eto Rosales, we want to see all the independent power plants contracts. And by golly, I turned to my own client, which is the Department of Energy, and I said, you better produce every single one. And I think any of my friends who are still there in Congress will tell you that the entire floor of the House was covered with boxes, because we don't hold anything back, and I will not defend anything that is not out there. When it comes to the IATF, we have no contribution whatsoever to that IATF. They do not take any funds from us. And what else did you ask? So that's their problem. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, last na lang po, kasi nung February 6,
Sandali po. Ituloy mo po muna, Secretary Locsin, yung sinasabi mo.
On passports, any revenues we get from issuing passports, renewal of passports, unfortunately goes back to Treasury. But I can understand, that is the rule. It goes to Treasury so we cannot touch it. What we asked the House last year was, can we get authority to retain those earnings? But ayaw ng DBM, so okay, we listen to DBM. They are our boss, no? So wala. So if whatever we get from passport renewals or issuance of original first passports always goes to Treasury. We do not keep a cent.
Ang committee secretary po ay inaatasan na kunin lahat o i-secure lahat ng dokumento mula sa Department of Foreign Affairs.
Lastly,
Congresswoman
Mr. Chair,
Arlene, last
yung review
question
sa
muna po yung
DFA.
kanina, pero pagbibigyan kitang isingit mo yan. Sige po.
Yes, so lastly, Mr. Chair, noong February 6 kasi, sa Senate Committee on International Relations hearing, the Secretary Locsin said na there should be no termination yet, but a rigorous review of the BFA. Now, Mr. Chair, has the DFA reviewed the BFA since that pronouncement, at kung meron po silang kopya ng review na yon, Mr. Chair? That's my last.
Secretary Locsin?
Okay, I said that in my view, that the VFA should be first reviewed again before we abrogate it. Well, after saying those words, and I said it also in the Senate, the President issued the order, abrogated. In 1 second, I abrogated it, finished. And that was the end of the VFA. That left them, I don't know how many months to wind up. And then, I don't know how much I can say, but I can tell you that I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, let's just put it this way, communistic powers were very happy when I suspended it on the orders of the President, because the abrogation of the VFA caused a lot of tension in the South China Sea na kahit mga komunista natakot. So they said, pare, relax muna. If possible, can you suspend it first? Ayan, I suspended it on the orders of the President. So there is no VFA to speak of anymore. It's abrogated, and then the abrogation has been suspended for 6 months, renewable for 6 months.
Okay, malinaw po. Ang susunod po na magtatanong ay ang ating tagapagtanggol ng Kamsur, Deputy Speaker El Rey Villapuerte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some clarifications from the Honorable Secretary, who's our former colleague. Mr. Chair, I think in the last hearing, the Honorable Secretary was asked by our Chairman, Eric, an issue regarding the West Philippine Sea. I think the question was kung China lang ba ang may features in the West Philippine Sea, which is under dispute. And I think the Honorable Secretary has mentioned, has answered by saying, I believe so. May we get a clarificatory statement from the Secretary if it's indeed true that it's only China who has constructed features in the West Philippine Sea?
Secretary Locsin?
Okay, the number of occupied features in the South China Sea from the West Philippine Sea briefer is Philippines 8 features. It's claimed by us, right? It's claimed by us. Mainland China claims 7, Taiwan 1, Vietnam 21, Malaysia 5. How many of those other than with China we will do? Do we have any conflicts with Taiwan? I think we do. We do, right? Ito Aba. We have a conflict with Taiwan, with Vietnam. We have also? No, none. Malaysia? God damn it. Malaysia, aside from Sabah. Wala. So and then mainland China. In mainland China, which of our 8 features are we in conflict with mainland China?
China's claiming everything.
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, nalimutan ko. China pala is claiming everything in the South China Sea. So China is claiming the one of Taiwan, the one of Vietnam, the one of Malaysia, and the one of the Philippines, aside from their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, para sa clarification na yon. Deputy Speaker Villapuerte?
So, Mr. Chair, it's clear that it's not only China that has the features because I think the public should know this because ang lumalabas kasi na China lang ang may ginagawang incursions in the Philippine EEZ. And with the clarification from our Honorable Secretary, Vietnam has 21, China has 8, Malaysia has 5, if I'm correct, Taiwan has 1. So hindi lang pala China, Mr. Chairman, ang meron pong mga features dito sa West Philippine Sea. Ang tanong ko po, Mr. Chair, is since it's already on record that Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan also have features, have we filed any diplomatic protests with regards to these illegal features, Mr. Chair?
Secretary Locsin?
I don't think we have active conflicts with Malaysia, Vietnam, and Taiwan. So there's no need for diplomatic protests. However, since China claims all of the South China Sea with the 9-dash line, and then they move around their vessels, so from time to time when they break into our territory, we shoot a diplomatic protest. We have 54 diplomatic protests at China, and China has answered 42 of them. So they are the ones moving their forces around because they claim all of it. The rest stay where they are.
So, just for clarification, Mr. Chair, the Secretary has confirmed that there is no need to file a diplomatic protest against Malaysia, Taiwan, and Vietnam, despite the fact that these are disputed areas in the West Philippine Sea. Is that correct?
Secretary?
That's right. We have no conflicts with them. They have their claims. We have ours, and apparently they don't overlap. Is that correct? Okay, I'm just talking to my experts here, and they said none. And in the case of China, however, since they claim all of the South China Sea, and they send their forces out to make their claim tangible and real, so then we are forced to preserve our claim. In our case, it's more than a claim. It's now our right because we won the arbitral award. We then have to file a diplomatic protest because if we do not, in effect, we are saying, tama kayo. It belongs to you and not to us. And we cannot afford to do that because I have repeatedly said that no government of the Republic of the Philippines will survive the surrender of an inch of Philippines' sacred territory to a foreign power.
Thank you, Mr.
Especially-
Chair. We're happy to hear that. I believe that as a Filipino, it's our right. We should not claim what is ours. However, as part of the decision, hindi ba po involved ang areas currently being may features of Vietnam? Shouldn't we also file a protest because of the features they established, Mr. Chair?
Secretary?
Apparently, the Vietnamese are not moving, so there's no need to against us. So there's no need to file a diplomatic protest. We don't like to do what you call academic protests because then people don't take us seriously. We wait for an actual incursion, and then we file a diplomatic protest. Although one time, medyo nagalit ang because China was holding naval maneuvers, but it was in the territory of Vietnam. So sabi ko, ang statement ko, I have checked the location of the Chinese naval maneuvers and the coordinates show they are not within Philippine territory. However, ito nagalit sila, should the Chinese naval exercises spill over into my territory, I can assure them that the consequences will be the worst you can imagine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully respect what Secretary is doing. Ang ano ko lang po, Mr. Chair, is since Vietnam, Malaysia, I'm not pinpointing a particular Vietnam, have set up features in an area where we are claiming our right, shouldn't we do something about it also, Mr. Chair?
Secretary Locsin?
They are not claiming any of the territories that the Vietnamese have claimed. We're not, right? We're not. Yes or no? Yes or no? No, we're not. We're not. So there's no reason to unlike China, which keeps entering our territory. And in fact, unfortunately, with the consent of the United States, under that awful President Obama, we lost that relief.
Mr. Chair, my question earlier was Mr. Chair, my question earlier is how many features are occupied in the West Philippine Sea, and the Honorable Secretary has answered that. My follow-up question to that is, of which, how many are within the Philippine EEZ, Exclusive Economic Zone, and who are the occupants of these features within the Philippine EEZ po, Mr. Chair?
Secretary?
Wait a minute. Why can we not? In other words, all features within the West. I'm talking to my experts. All features within the West Philippine Sea is ours. No, it's just the name. It's what we call the sea.
Yes.
Okay, it's just like the South China Sea, for example. That doesn't mean because the name China is there that everything in the South China Sea belongs to China. In fact, it should belong to Great Britain because it's Great Britain that gave that name. But in our case, we call the area the West Philippine Sea, but we do not claim all the features there. We are very specific in our claims, and they are exactly 8. 8 of those features are claimed by us. The rest are not claimed by us. But we insist on calling that. For example, the president very wisely once said to China, by the way, you notice there is a part of the waters around Asia called the Sulu Sea. Just because I called it the Sulu Sea doesn't mean that I own everything there. The Philippines owns everything there. And then he turned to President Xi and said, just because you call it is called the South China Sea, does not mean everything there belongs to you either. Otherwise, I will take all of the Sulu Sea. So these are just geographical names, but they do not confer any rights. The rights are very specific. And the arbitral award won only by the Philippines without any help from any of these. I don't want to curse people from any country in the world who are now citing the West, the arbitral award. We did it all by ourselves, and we won it, and it's ours. And it's now part of international law. Kaya nga yung sinabi nila, are you not going to say thank you to Europe because they are now supporting the arbitral award? I said no. Why should I say thank you? The arbitral award is now a part of international law. International law does not require the support of any country to be valid. It is what it is called, international law. So I don't need anybody. I have international law on my side.
Deputy Villapuerte.
So just for clarification, based on data, maybe we can ask the Honorable Secretary to confirm this. There are 21 features within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone which are occupied by other countries. 11 are occupied by Vietnam, 5 by Malaysia, 4 by China, and 1 by Taiwan. Maybe we can ask Mr. Chairman, the Secretary, to confirm this, that there are 21 features within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone occupied by other countries. And as again, if they can confirm, 11 features are from Vietnam, 5 from Malaysia, 4 from China, and 1 from Taiwan. Maybe the Honorable Secretary
Secretary?
can confirm this.
Yes, I can confirm that. My experts tell me that this is within our economic zone. Now I am asking him, what are the rights within an economic zone? They are...
That's why we're having a code of conduct.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary,
That's
Mr.
the
Chairman.
reason why we are now negotiating a code of conduct with all of these countries involved on how do we deal with each other when we have our respective economic zones. And we as China coordinator are working on that. Now, some people are telling us, well, don't work too hard on that. Because anyway, that looks like you are accommodating China. I said, no, we're not accommodating China. All of us are interested in knowing how we can deal with each other within the South China Sea. And so we're coming up with a code. In that code, I don't believe that we give up any sovereignty. It's only how we will conduct ourselves in this situation where you have different rights, the economic zone, arbitral award, and territorial seas. That's really what it's all about. And although the West is not happy about that, I have assured the West that when we do the code of conduct, we will never adopt what China wants, which is the exclusion of Western power from the South China Sea. I can swear to you,
Mr. Chair.
Western power will be in the South China Sea. Unlike previous administrations, previous dispensations, we are very clear about that. We believe in the balance of power, that the freedom of the Filipino people depends on the balance of power in the South China Sea to the exclusion of no other great power in the world.
Mr. Chairman.
Deputy Speaker Dan Fernandez.
Yeah, ano lang to, Mr. Chairman, in relation to what DSLRA is discussing right now with Secretary Locsin. Secretary, ano lang to, interjection lang do sa mga questions that are being asked by DSLRA. Kasi I noticed the different style of your working ethic, no, with regards to the fight of the disputed areas, especially on the fighting it into two different fronts. No, you are very known, no, for your bravery. Dahil dun po sa inyong mga social media approaches, ano, like yung inyong pong ruthless and savage comment, ano, especially dun sa atin sa fight sa Malaysia, sa Sabah, at dun sa ating pong South China Sea, dun po sa China. And at the same time, we have like some bilateral talks that are being discussed by the DFA formally. Don't you think it is disadvantageous to the government to have this kind of approach, trying to negotiate bilaterally, but somehow we are attacking the different countries who have dispute dito po sa mga areas na to. Don't you think it's better that we just discuss it in a silent manner rather than being a more blatant approach sa ating pong social media?
Secretary
Well,
Locsin.
I'll tell you, if we conduct diplomacy on these issues very quietly, we will wake up one day having lost all our rights. It is better that the public who own these rights, the Filipino people know exactly every move we're making and where we will never compromise, because some things cannot be settled diplomatically. And what are those things? They are the things that are ours.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, I respect your position and I salute you for that. No, doon po ba sa mga like the, the 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 moment that you have put those words sa inyo pong social media sa Twitter po, ay did those areas answer back?
Malaysia answered back, and I don't know why they answered it. I wasn't even talking to them. I was, for example, I was objecting to the United States Embassy putting out a post that said that we are repatriating Filipinos from Sabah, Malaysia. So I
Okay.
said, take that down.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's the
You
reason why.
cannot use the word. You cannot use the word Sabah, Malaysia, and you
Okay.
cannot say you're repatriating Filipinos from territory that we are claiming. First, he did not want to do it, and then when I talked to Secretary of State Pompeo, he told them to take it down. Then the Malaysians decided to bring it up. I wasn't even talking to them. Well, I'll tell you one thing: I'm not scared of them.
All right. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, the reason why I asked this because remember yung Scarborough natin, Mr. Secretary, during that time that we are being so vocal about this claim, nawala yung Scarborough natin. And this time, I think yung approach po na Secretary Locsin, though I really respect that approach, I hope that we will be having a positive result on this, considering the front that you are fighting right now. And with that, Mr. Chairman, yun lang po muna ang aking pong katanungan, and I'll giving it back to DSLRA. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Deputy
If I
Villapuerte.
may comment, I remember that the last time we were very polite. In fact, the ones who won the arbitral award were very polite in the beginning. When a Chinese ship, where was that? Scarborough had come in, and the Filipino vessel had confronted them. At that time, under President Obama, he said, "Stand down." He was afraid that there would be a clash between the two naval assets. And if there is a clash, that would trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty, which is a war between China and the United States. And they said, "Stand down." So, with great reluctance, because our Navy men are extremely bold and brave. They don't like withdrawing, and they're known for that around the world. They stood down, and then the United States, okay, withdraw. So they withdrew. This is the result of silent diplomacy. They withdrew. China did not withdraw. The next thing you know, China reclaimed it. So sometimes, when you're quiet, basically silence. There is a Latin saying we all that from law school. Qui tacet consentire videtur. Silence gives consent. So it is better to speak up in a situation like this. And you know what? We are more respected when you stand up and are clear than when you try diplomatic. I will tell you that my dealings with the most aggressive, my most aggressive counterparts have always been the most productive. And at the end of all our fighting, we respect each other more and we get more done. That's always the case. But those who give in, lose.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congressman Villapuerte, pakituloy na po ang iyong linyada ng pagtatanong.
Yeah, I would like to direct this question to the Honorable Secretary. Mr. Chair, what is his opinion on the recent statement of the European Parliament with regards to Maria Ressa case and the granting of ABS-CBN franchise? I feel strongly that this is an infringement on our sovereignty. This is an interference on domestic matters. What is his opinion? And as a follow-up, what he intends to do based on this, I think, unacceptable action by the European Parliament, Mr. Chair.
Secretary?
First, I think we should better check what is the context of that. Remember, you're reading this from Rappler. What I do know, to give you an example, over a year ago, there was a forum in London. And I was invited to go to that forum on media, or on social media. And I had a part in that. but for some reason I couldn't go. And instead, well, of course, the Rappler people went, and everybody who hates Duterte went. And then what they did was hijack it and make it seem as if the whole meeting in London was all about the problems of Rappler and all the enemies of President Duterte. In fact, that social media forum was a forum on what we are undoubtedly number one in. It was a forum on child pornography. We are the biggest in the world in that awful industry. That's what it was about. But did you read anything about that? No, because the spin given to that forum by the enemies of Duterte made it seem that it was all about us, when it wasn't. Now I want to check what exactly happened, because I get from some of my sources in the media that they didn't spend that much time on that. Maybe in a forum like that, if you are with ABS-CBN, you can insert that concern. If you are with Rappler, you can insert that concern.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair,
in relation lang, DSLRA, in
Vice
relation
Chairman
lang.
Villapuerte.
Mr. Chairman,
Sandali lang.
relation din, pare, may relation din sa ano.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chairman Villapuerte.
Mr. Chair, I think the Parliament passed a resolution expressing alarm over the deteriorating level of press freedom in the Philippines, citing the cyber libel conviction of Maria Ressa. So again, I would like to reiterate, I think this is an interference in domestic matters. The issue of the case of Maria Ressa has passed through the Philippine judicial system. She was accorded due process. This was not a decision of the executive nor our president. This was a decision coming from the judiciary, which is a co-equal branch. So, Mr. Chair, I really strongly feel that this is, an interference in our domestic affairs and an infringement on our sovereignty, Mr. Chair. So, may we hear...
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I would
Secretary.
call it an attempt to interfere in our internal affairs, but we have repeatedly told them abroad that this is all going through legal processes, and one of our best spokesmen there, and again, he will be our champion, is Justice Secretary Guevara, who explains that it is all going according to the same legal process that happens in such countries as the United States.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
yes, they are attempting to interfere in our internal affairs, and our response to that is you can attempt to interfere, but they will not affect our internal affairs, because the justice system will go on as it has. Because the cases against, for example, Senator De Lima are going through the judicial process. I was confronted by that in the United Nations, and this is what I told them. They said, "Do you know that so many journalists have been killed in the Philippines?" I said, "And what's your problem?" And these UN people said, "Well, you have not convicted them." I said, "Well, they are being tried." So, well, then you're not convicted, but you should convict them. Okay, I said, I will give my next speech at the United Nations and say, I will now endeavor to convict these people accused of killing journalists without evidence, just on your say-so. Would you like me to do that? They backed off. These people, they will say anything they want, and the thing is to stand your ground. It's a free world. People can say anything they want. I always say, like, for example, the enemies of the press, they'll say, hey, did you know China said this? That this is the right, that is the right. I said, it's a free world. They can say they own the world. I don't care. But can they enforce that? No. Will I let it go unchallenged? No. The same here. Let them try to interfere with our internal process. What can they do? Really? What can they do? Affect our general tariff preferences? Well, let's see. Because that has to do with bilateral relations or trade relations. And we have their ambassadors in the Philippines, and they will speak up for us. Because so far, we've got along very well with them.
Deputy Fernandez.
Mr. Chairman, interjection lang in relation to what you have talked about, no, about dun sa EU Parliament, no. The one who proposed this resolution and been approved by the European Parliament is si Miss Hannah Newman. Don't you think it is quite proper to declare her persona non grata, considering that she is trying to interfere with our local governance, Mr. Secretary?
In the Philippines?
Secretary?
Yes, well, that is a political decision. I'm going to ask the president if he would like me to do that. But is this, what's her name? Anna? This individual?
Hannah Newman.
I'm just asking my experts, can you declare a person persona non grata who is not in the Philippines?
Normally not eh. Not normally not.
Yeah, normally you can't because she couldn't care less what we called her. But I don't care. If that's what you want me to do, I'll do it.
Yeah, kasi,
But
Mr. Chairman,
remember that I will be arguing with these people in Europe and presenting the case for the propriety, the fairness and of the Philippine legal system. If I retaliate by saying you are now persona non grata, for which that woman will say so, sticks and stones can break
but
my
at
bones.
least, Mr. Secretary,
Sandali po,
The
Deputy
thing is
Speaker
whether I will
Fernandez.
allow myself
Mr. Secretary, yan po ay
dialogue
katanungan
with
ni Deputy Speaker Einstein Fernandez. Pero siyempre, kung ano pa rin ang makakabutis na estratehiya para sa ating bansa, yun pa rin ang dapat nyong gawin. Kasi ang nakasalalay po dito ay daan-daan libong trabaho ng ating mga kababayan na nangangamuhan at nagninegosyo sa Europa. At kailangan po nating isalang-alang yung ating mga kababayan, pero hindi naman pwedeng ibaba yung integridad ng ating bansa dahil dito.
that's the reason why I'm trying to ask this, Mr. Chairman, because if we do nothing, it will be perceived by the different nation in the world that we are lax in trying to check those people who are trying to say bad things against us. And being a strong leader like President Duterte, I think it is just right for us to do something. At least man lang by declaring her as a persona non grata, together with those who have signed this resolution, I think we have made our point, Mr. Chairman. Yun lang naman po sa akin at least sana magkaroon po ng deklarasyon na katulad ito. Marami po salamat, Mr. Secretary.
Last question, Congressman
If I may,
Villapuerte.
I would like to thank the chairman for his. I always learn so much from these meetings with both houses of Congress. You're right. My first impulse is, of course, to hit back, but then it doesn't hurt them by calling them persona non grata. On the other hand, as the chairman has said, I may hurt my own people. So what I'm going to do instead is to argue with them and say, show me where exactly we have been unfair in the administration of justice. We have actually showed that already. But with people who are really not interested in the truth, they will just continue repeating their lies. The thing is, what do we do? What I don't want is to exclude us from the debate going on the human rights situation from the Philippines, because that is when we really insult ourselves, because then you leave the forum to them. I am not afraid of them. I don't need to declare them anything. I can answer them. Now, whether they believe me or not, I am right now working with other responsible countries to establish the human rights credentials of the Philippines. And I'm going to do that. I'm not afraid of these people. I will not exclude them from the debate. If I did, then I'm a coward.
Mr. Chair,
Gabayan ka po, Mr. Secretary ng ating Panginoon, lalong-lalo na gabayan ka ng ating mga kababayan sa iyong pagtatanggol sa ating bansa, pagharap mo sa iyong mga foreign counterparts, Mr. Secretary. Pagpatuloy mo na po ang iyong huling katanungan, Congressman Villapuerte.
Mr. Chair, Secretary Locsin was a former member of Congress. I think he's a 3-termer member of Congress. Gusto ko lang tanungin sa kanya kasi in relation to the European Parliament statements or resolution na dapat raw bigyan ng franchise ang ABS-CBN. While everyone knows that dumaan naman to sa proseso, nag-hearing, nag-desisyon, and tama naman po ang proseso based on the rules. I just like to ask him, as a member of Congress, what's his comment about this resolution passed by the European Parliament na dapat raw magbigay kami ng prangkisa contrary to what this body has decided on.
Mr. Secretary, as a former member ng
Yes.
Congress, Mr. Secretary.
As not only as a former member, but just as a plain rational person. that the European Union has now gone down to the detail of deciding for us which entity gets a franchise or not, just goes to show that they have descended to the level of stupidity. I mean, I hate to use the word, but really, they are discrediting themselves because they are picking up just anything that the enemies and the critics of Duterte are throwing at our president. You pick that up, and who loses? You think us? The whole world knows what exactly are the prerogatives of a state. But these people are attempting to interfere in every detail of our government. And yet, what exactly is the role of the European Union in our national affairs, in our economy? It's big in the sense of trade. It will affect jobs if we let them do it. But first, I have to show the world that these people who introduced this resolution and even brought up matters as trivial as the ABS-CBN franchise in a European Parliament. My God, they're bringing down that Parliament. Do you know why I say they're bringing down that Parliament? Because when we had our titanic battle with Ferdinand Marcos in the 1986, in the 19 election, the People Power election, the European Parliament was very careful. They were very responsible people. They were not taking sides. They were watching all sides to see who really won the election, who really lost the election. They watched the struggle objectively. And then there was a stalemate. If you will all remember, those who are as old as me at 71 years old, there was a stalemate. Who won the election? At that time, a European Parliament with the dignity not to touch just the most trivial things, but only the biggest issues, suddenly came up with a resolution. The European Parliament declared Cory Aquino the winner of the snap election. See, it counted. Right there, we did not know who to call Your Excellency, Marcos or Cory Aquino. After the European Parliament said that, we could say in front of the media, Your Excellency, would this is what the European Parliament is throwing away. They're trivial concerns. But if that's what they want to do to themselves, fine. Then nobody will listen to them. There are many great issues happening in Europe. There are wars on the eastern side of Europe. There are wars in the Middle East and North Africa that are going to reach Europe, that have already reached Europe. Do they want to discredit the European Parliament by picking up nonsensical issues? Well, that's their problem. So if I were to stoop and say, you're persona non grata, I will dignify this silliness that's going on there. They are discrediting themselves. And it's a pity. There was a time when they played such a great role in history because, without that people power revolution, without that snap election and the outcome, none of us would be sitting in Parliament today, in the Congress today. Not me, not you, not any of the people who became president after Cory Aquino. No one would be. You know who would be in the palace from 1986 on? Possibly Imelda Marcos, possibly another Marcos crony, possibly Marcos General, possibly another Marcos General, possibly the son of another Marcos General. To this day, all of us would be nowhere. But because of that titanic struggle, in which the European Parliament with great dignity intervened in an internal affair with dignity on the right side and said, no, she won. Imagine that. Now, if they want to throw that away, fine. There was once, as I say, once in future king. There was once a time when the European Parliament stood for something. And now, no more. So who destroyed the European Parliament? They want to destroy themselves? That's fine. They want to discredit themselves? That's fine. But we know where we stand. We stand with a president who fights the worst scourge in the world today, the scourge of drugs.
Ang susunod po na magtatanong,
Mr. Chair.
yes, Deputy Speaker Villapuerte.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your comments. I just would like to put on record kasi na these countries, abusado na po. Unang-una, pinagsasabihan nila ang executive branch on how to deal with, on how to properly deal with the human rights issue. Ngayon, pinagsasabihan na po nila ang judicial branch na itapon na kumbaga ibasura na raw ang kaso kay Maria Ressa at ngayon nakikialam na rin sa legislative branch na dapat raw bigyan ng prangkisa. So in reality, while they are interfering in the executive, judicial, and legislative branch, baka susunod niyan makialam na sila in our daily lives. So just for the people to note na sumusobra na po itong European Parliament, while we want to continue good relations with them, siguro yung ibang members sa kanila ay masyado nagiging personal. So yan lang po, Mr. Chair, at maraming salamat sa oras, and we thank the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Speaker El Rey Villapuerte. At kung itutuloy-tuloy siguro ng European Parliament yung pakikialam sa Pilipinas, dapat siguro gumawa na rin tayo ng batas para sa kanila, para patas tayo. Di ba? Sa atin pong susunod na magtatanong ay galing naman sa ating minority, Representative Franz Castro. Wala pa po yata si Congresswoman Franz Castro. Ang susunod po na magtatanong ay si Representative Ferdy Gaite na binigyan ng karagdagang 3 minuto ni Representative Eufemia Colyamat. Congressman Gaite? Congressman Gaite? Dahil po hindi sumasagot si Congressman Gaite, ang susunod po na magtatanong ay si Congresswoman Sara Ilago. Congresswoman Sara Ilago? Mukhang busy. Ano po? At dahil po wala na magtatanong mula sa minority, ang susunod naman po magtatanong ay mula naman sa majority muli. Ang kanina pa pong singit ng singit sa talaktakan at sa talastasan ni Congresswoman El Rey Villapuerte, ang tinaguri ang Einstein ng Kongreso kasi pagka mahihirap na usapin, sa mahilig pumasok Deputy Speaker Dan Einstein Fernandez.
Hindi naman po, Mr. Chairman. Alam mo yan, si Secretary Locsin, idol natin yan When I was first-term congressman, siya yung aming senior colleague. And we learned a lot of things from
Siya ba nagturo
Secretary
sa iyo,
Locsin.
Deputy Speaker Einstein?
Diyan kami natuto.
Sino ba nagturo kay Einstein?
Anyway,
Sige po, tuloy mo na po ang iyong pagtatanong.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, kasi doon po sa Republic Act 7157, ito pong ating Philippine Foreign Service Act, may binabanggit po tungkol doon sa hardship post. Ang tanong ko lang po, Mr. Secretary, ano ba yung mga hardship post na nakalagay sa natin, sa ating pong mga area sa buong mundo? What are the current hardship posts?
Can I get the list of the current hardship posts? The hardship posts
Secretary?
on the political and economic situation in the area, or wait, I have to be careful. You're right; it cannot always be like that, no? Where the restrictions are very severe in the movement of persons, in the practice of their liberties. These are hardship posts because especially restrictions on labor rights. So in these cases, it becomes a hardship post because many of our fellow Filipinos will then be depending more on our foreign posts to protect them, to help them. In some cases, such as in Africa, the very distance from major centers of economic and cultural and commercial centers like Europe, if you're in deepest Africa, that also makes it a hardship post because it's very hard to get supplies in spite of which I would like to thank our UMWA team. When we had 16 Filipinos of Mormons stuck in Central Africa, we got them out. We got them out in this pandemic.
Mr. Secretary, in other words, itong ating
Okay,
pong mga
okay.
hardship.
More specifically, can I say, thank you so much. More specifically, when there is an absence or a lack of medical and education facilities, that also is important, because if the situation gets bad, even our own people in the post are in danger. So then we
So-
call it a hardship post. There's
Yeah.
a hardship allowance that goes with it. Yusek Malaya can explain that with
Ayan,
more.
I just wanted to find out, Mr. Chairman, no, Mr. Secretary, kung how many yung mga hardship hardship post natin right now. Kasi basically nagpapalit naman yan depende sa sitwasyon ng bansa, di po ba? And like for example, right now we are into a COVID pandemic globally. So we are considering that also that we have changes yung ating hardship post sa buong mundo. So how many po yung hardship post natin, and at the same time how many personnel or staff do we have right now?
Secretary.
Yusek, I'd
Yusek-
like to refer this to Yusek Malaya.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary. Yusek Malaya, you can answer.
Yusek
personnel?
Malaya.
Yes, Mr. Chair. There are currently about 15 hardship posts, and there are what we call as Category B, Category C, Category D, Category E.
Yeah, okay.
And as you go from Category B to E, the more difficult it is to be working there. So for instance, in Category E, these are practically the war-torn areas. So Baghdad, Damascus, and Tripoli. And for service in these places, there is an additional 5% in the overseas
Yes,
allowance.
I'm going to that line, Mr. Chairman. So aside from those allowances that we're giving to our hardship post, I'm asking about yung how many personnel do we have doon sa mga hardship post natin. We have 15, di ba, na hardship post na you enumerated. So ilan yung personnel that involved right now? Kasi nga po, dapat alam natin kung magkano yung mga binibigyan natin ng allowances sa mga personnels natin, di ba? And staff. Yusek Malaya.
Yusek.
Our Assistant Secretary for Personnel would have the specific number, but
Yeah,
I would
please.
think that, and he is in the Home Office, I would think that we probably would be having about 400 plus, lower, 300 perhaps, of our people.
300 personnel in the whole
Yes.
world? Sa buong ano na to sa buong mundo na ho to ha?
Well, it's only because these are
Hardship.
places in hardship,
Yeah.
generally in the Middle East,
Yes.
some in Africa.
And now we have like 15 hardship post.
Yes.
Hardship post categories. And pursuant to dun sa ating pong Republic Act 7157 also, nagkaroon tayo ng Department Order number, I think this was the time of Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano Ito yung parang consolidation ng criteria and benefits ng mga hardship post At yun nga yung sinasabi nyo a while ago that there's a certain 5% na higher than the normal regular allowances for overseas And are these being implemented, including the family allowances?
Yes, currently. It's
being
implemented.
Okay. In that case, kung yun po ay being implemented right now, how much is the total cost for this allowances that are being given to our hardship post personnels?
May I request our Assistant Secretary
Please.
for Finance to answer? Myla Makihila.
Assistant Secretary.
Thank you very
But
much.
may I first make a comment?
Sige
Okay,
po, Secretary.
Myla?
Sir?
Secretary.
Yes, okay. I'm so happy with that question, and that I have been asking for a review of staffing patterns, because if the posts are easy, I think that there should be less people there and more people in the hardship posts. It just makes sense. Second, on living allowances, for example, I have already instructed there is a group that is reviewing how we give out allowances. My view, which is going to be adopted, is this: that a living allowance must be the same from the bottom to the top, because so far as I know, as the chairman knows, we all the same, no matter what our position is. We may be the lowest in the office or the highest in the office. We have the same appetite. So that's going to be all equalized up and down the line, and of course the staffing pattern is important because I can imagine that as a hardship post, fewer people want to go there, but as a hardship post, that's where we should send more. So, Myla, if you can explain.
Yeah, may question lang naman, Myla ba? Myla, kung how much does it cost us annually for this hardship post? Especially now, no, na meron tayong pandemic. So I think the budget for this have increased, no?
Asek Myla, bago po kita payagang sumagot, ipapaalala lang po sa lahat ng ating invited guests, pati po sa lahat ng ating mga members, na kayo po ay hindi pinapahintulutan ng chairman ng committee ito na direktang mag-usap. Ang lahat po ng pagtatanong at pagsasagot sa mga tanong ay ipatutungkol at padadaanin niyo po sa chairman po ng committee ito. Maraming salamat po. Asek Myla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the hardship allowance po, sir, we've actually grown in terms of the number ng posts that are classified as hardship allowance. It started with about 7, and then in the past 3 years, because of conflict in the Middle East, medyo dumami po siya. There's also a recent group na classify because of COVID. Our estimate po for the upcoming year, in 2021, we're looking at about 12 million cost for the existing number. But
12
again,
million what, Mr. Chairman? 12 million
12
Yes,
million pesos
Asek.
po.
pesos. 12 million pesos for the hardship post personnel. Kasi
Yes, sir.
we have like 15 hardship post na you mentioned a while ago. That's a good secretary had mentioned a while ago. And ang personnel natin doon is almost 300, di ba? 300 doon sa 15 na yon. So sa 300 personnel, we have allotted 12 million pesos.
Sir, there's
Asek Myla.
yes, sir. Mr. Chair, what we're asking is actually an addition because of the increase in number.
Okay, that's an addition, yung
Yes,
12
sir.
million. So what was the previous allotment last year for hardship post?
Asek Myla.
The built-in, it's actually built-in sa PS po namin. Ang expenditure po last year will be around 10.
That's 10 million
Yes,
last
sir.
year sa 2020. And now sa 2021, you are asking 12 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Punta muna tayo doon sa mga top 5 posts with the highest cost of living. Kasi siyempre alam naman natin yun sa iba-ibang lugar merong matataas yung cost of living, di ba? Ano yung pinaka 5 highest places yung in terms of cost of living? Mr. Chairman.
Asek Myla.
Thank you, sir. In terms of cost of living po, it will vary again depending on the point. But then the existing allowance rates po is actually
No,
still
I'm
around
asking about the USEC, ASEC. I'm asking about those places. Like for example, ang mataas ang cost of living siyempre sa Paris, ganyan. So ano yung mga top 5?
Asek,
Mr.
yes.
Mr. Chair, like I said, it's around Europe, so Switzerland.
So wala kayong specific places na?
No, sir.
What are those
Switzerland.
places na top 5?
Switzerland would
Yan,
be
okay,
one.
Switzerland.
France is also
France.
high at this time. London is also high.
London.
So around those areas, sir.
Okay, so how many personnel are assigned to those places? Hindi,
Um,
nakatatlo ka lang. Ano pa yung dalawa?
Copenhagen,
Copenhagen, okay.
and Germany at this time.
Okay, what are
Asek,
how many personnel are assigned on these places, Mr. Chairman?
Asek Myla.
Thank you, sir. I don't have the numbers at this time, but again, it varies. But most of these are actually like mid-sized posts, so within about 15 regular employees.
15 regular employees for the whole top 5 highest cost of living places. Okay, 15. Okay. So, ano po yung mga, well, I'm pretty sure that we're giving mga ano rito, yung mga allowances, ano? What are those allowances that are being given to our personnel dito po sa mga places na to? Like for example, yung kanilang quarterly living allowances, ano pa ba? Yung mga kanilang representation, and yung pambayad ng kanilang apartments. And syempre, the last time that we have change yung kanilang payment doon sa kanilang mga areas of mga living quarters nila, when was the last time? I mean, syempre, gradually nag-increase yan eh. So, have you allotted funds for this as well? For 2020, magkano po? And 2021, magkano po?
Yes, Asek Myla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sir, under the Republic Act 7157, there's a set of prescribed allowances for foreign service personnel. So that major allowances that are given are overseas allowance, which is supposed to cover yung cost of maintaining their
So in other
living
words, Mr. Asek, naka-lump sum na to doon sa PS ninyo, kaya hindi nyo makita kung magkano yung naka-specific for this purpose. Okay, so
May I?
The chair would like to recognize Secretary Locsin.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the Congressman. That's right. Okay, I will submit details of every post, what they get. You will get the exact figures.
yes, okay.
Yes, please do so, Mr. Secretary. COMSEC is hereby
You will
directed
be provided
to get the list and submit it to the committee.
That's right. That's right. You'll
Okay,
get it.
all right. Thank you so much. Kasi nakita ko, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, that I think these are the things that we need to put, increase the budget of ng DFA on this regard. Meron lang kasi akong question, Mr. Secretary, about dun sa passport natin. Considering that we have increased the validity of our, di ba, ng our passport from 5 years to 10 years, di ba? And then we have an increase doon po sa ating passport thing na from, I think, naging 4.6 billion ba to? Is this right? Kasi I'm trying to look sa budget natin na parang tumaas pa ata yung ating budget for passport application, considering that we have already increased the validity of the passport. So, can we somehow put the budget nung sa mga personnel natin, makuha natin dito sa pondo that you have asking sa passport? Medyo na lang po ako, na wonder lang po ako why.
Please, may I answer that?
Yeah, why
Secretary
we have
Locsin,
increased,
you may now respond.
Yes. Even as we have extended the life of passports to 10 years, which of course reduces the need for renewals, and that should actually bring down the revenues. But more and more people are applying for passports for the first time, and at any rate, whether we making more or less money now, all that money goes to the national treasury, because up to now, although we asked for it before the House last year, the DBM will not, and they may be right, not to let us retain the money. So it goes to the national treasury.
So in other words, Mr. Secretary, the whole payment for the passport application goes to Bureau of Treasury, and none is being left to the Department of Foreign Affairs?
Yes.
Secretary Locsin.
Okay.
Yes.
For the expedited fee, which goes to-
Well, there is the expedited fee. That one we can retain. But other than that, yes, it goes to the treasury. Of course, we have to pay for the printing of those passports, and that's where we then turn around and ask DBM to please release it so we can pay for our costs of.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, last question ko na po to, with regards dun po sa passport pa rin, Yung passport po natin, pag nakikita mo, andun yung, may nag-text lang po sa akin isang congressman from South, from Cavite, Kasi po, medyo sabi niya,
Nagrereklamo na ba kasi ang tagal mong magtanong?
hindi naman siya nagrereklamo. Para kay Secretary, lang po to,
Okay.
Secretary Locsin, doon sa ating pong passport, makikita mo yung Mayon Volcano, Subataha Reef, Banawe, Rice Terraces. Baka naman daw pwede malagay yung Taal Volcano. Galing to kay Congressman na Bambol Tolentino. Yung pong Taal Volcano kasi galing po to sa sa Batangas. Batangas, Taal Volcano. Malapit sa Tagaytay.
At ang request niya ay
Malagay Mr. Chairman, pag nakita mo yung passport natin kasi andun yung mga parang naka-superimpose Yung mga Mayon Volcano, yung yung Subataha Reef, ganun, Banawe Rice Terraces, baka daw pwedeng maisama. But it's a call of the good secretary.
No,
And,
no, no.
Tanungin po natin si Secretary kung anong sagot niya. Secretary?
No, it's a very good suggestion, and in such cases, it goes to the national what? The National Historical Institute. Everybody here is covering with a mask, so I cannot understand what they're saying. I don't know why. I don't have COVID naman. But anyway, yes, we will suggest that, and if there, we also welcome any suggestions on those designs, because when we are here to serve you, and remember, this is your country, and how you feel we should represent it in symbols is something we would appreciate getting it from you, especially the House of the People. So yes, I will take that seriously, and if you're serious about it, we will present that to the Historical Commission to make a design. Absolutely.
so, Mr. Secretary,
Okay.
yung pong mga passport ba
Deputy
natin?
Speaker Dan.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, yung mga passport natin, yun naman po, kapag nag-decide to change the picture of the passport, will pass through sa, no, sa printing natin, no, sa, ano ba yan? We have a printing, APO ba yan? I think, yeah. Di ba, APO ata yan na nagpapaprint? Ang print natin ng government, kasi sa APO po yan eh. So, I think they are more knowledgeable dun sa magiging design ng passport natin if ever that this will pass through the National Historical Commission and the Office of the Good Secretary. So, ito po mga passport natin, ang nagpiprint naman po nito yung APO, no? Mr. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think meron ata po tayo dito parang joint venture, and we are allowing the private entity na to have a contract with the APO. Ano to, Mr. Secretary, to expedite, to be more cheaper, or what's the catch on having a joint venture? Oh, I have what do you call that? A subcontract po ba ang tawag dito, Mr. Secretary?
Asik Neil is there. He was with me when I first came into this office, Mr. Chair.
Asik Neil,
So,
bago po kita i-recognize, papaalalahanan ko lang si Deputy Speaker Einstein na naubos mo na
tapos na ako.
ang iyong oras. Pakisagot po, Asik Neil, ang katanungan ni
Ano lang
Deputy
to, Asik Neil,
Einstein.
kasi normally yung ating mga government agency, if we have to print something, we go to the APO, no? And they print all the necessary documents that being required by a certain department. But in here, parang meron tayong arrangement that we have to go to a third party that they have to complete the project. So what's the catch on this, Mr. Chairman?
Asik Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Number one po, yung agreement po ng department, it's with the APO production unit. APO is a recognized government printer. Tapos, wala po tayong any agreement on any other party.
In other words, Mr. Asek, ang dumiskarte po, yung APO. Well, the problem with that, siyempre may mga security features ang passport eh. Don't you think that the passport will be compromised using the non-government entity? Like for example, kung may joint venture yung APO with the different printing companies, we have to check on this, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, kasi otherwise baka ma-compromise yung features ng ating passport if we're going to allow a third party which is not government to print this passport of ours.
Asek.
Can you kindly check on this, Asek? Mr. Secretary, can we have some assurance coming from you? Kasi somehow, this is a dangerous precedent to, na baka mamaya makompromise yung ating mga hawak na passport. Di ba? And kasi nga, as far as I know, all our documents, kahit sa LTO, they go to the APO, and they don't have like sa National Printing Office tapos sa APO, di ba? Sa National Printing Office sila, ang DFA pala sa APO. So kindly look on this Mr. Secretary, para at least we can be feel comfortable. Baka mamaya bigla na lang yung pala yung ating passport compromise na.
Fight for anybody. Oh. So,
ASEC?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Number one po, yung pong kontrata po ng department with the APO production unit. Pinag-aralan po to very seriously ng mga interagency committee, including by Congress. Yung pong ating Committee on Foreign Affairs, pinag-aralan po ito at meron pong nakita po ng committee na maayos po ito. At naglabas po sila ng resolution ukol po dito. But I can assure you po na secure po ang data ng ating pasaporte, secure po ang proseso, at wala pong at all any problem as far as the security and integrity of the Philippine passport.
Okay, with that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, I'm relying on the words of ASEC Frank Perar on this one. Maraming po salamat at muli maraming salamat Mr. Secretary Locsin at mabuhay ka.
Maraming salamat, Deputy Einstein. Kanina po ay nilinaw na ni Secretary yung mga kaganapan at occupation ng mga features, iba't ibang features sa ating tinatawag na West Philippine Sea, yung ating Kalayaan Islands. Ngunit meron pa rin nagtatanong dito sa comment section natin, siguro naguluhan pa. Kaya palinawan na lang ulit natin kay Secretary ito, magiging parang siramplaka na si Secretary dito. Pero pagbigyan lang po natin, ito po'y galing kay Frank Kiko. Ang sabi po niya, kumakailan po ay nabalita sa Supreme Court si Justice Antonio Carpio at sinabi niya na China lamang, nakalagay dito, China lang, umano ay umaangkin sa features natin sa West Philippine Sea. Batay po sa opisyal na datos ng DFA, gaano katotoo yung sinabi ni Justice Carpio? Ang ibig sabihin po niya, China lamang daw po yung sabi daw po ni Justice Carpio, China lamang ang umaangkin sa features natin sa West Philippine Sea. Kadugtong po dito, hindi po ba may mga okupadong features din ang Vietnam, Malaysia at Taiwan sa loob ng ating exclusive economic zone? Nakikinig kanina sa usapan po natin ito, sigurado. Bakit hindi itama ng DFA itong mga sinabi ni Justice Carpio? Secretary Locsin?
well, actually, when it comes to active disputes, it is only China with which we are in dispute regarding what is ours by law and what they claim is theirs by, well, I don't know what is the basis.
Para
So
lamang
that's,
po,
that's
Mr. Secretary, sa
But the
kalinawan
rest,
ng lahat.
there are overlap. There are features in the West, in our exclusive economic zone, where Vietnam's claim is, but there is no contention there. Everybody's living. We have a modus vivendi, which we are now trying to formalize with the code of conduct. So just in case one day we might end up having a conflict with other countries with claims to features within our economic zone and how to use it, how to use those features within the economic zone. They're not like territorial islands, right? Then it's better we finally come out with a code of conduct. And that's why, although a lot of the Western countries don't want us to have a code of conduct, I'm just ignoring them, but they are right about one thing. That China's demand to exclude the Western powers from the South China Sea, that I will never allow. The Western powers must be present in the South China Sea as a balancer.
Mr. Secretary, ilan po ba ang kabuang bilang ng mga isla at mga rock formations at mga features dito sa disputed islands po na to na tinatawag nating Kalayaan Islands, Mr. Secretary?
Wait a minute, they're not islands, right? They're features.
Yes,
They're features, that's important.
Islands.
Kasi kung islands yan, then they can generate their own economic zone. So mamaya, Palawan, hindi na sa amin yun. So it's just a feature. They are, again, let me repeat, we have 8 features. Mainland China has 7, Vietnam has 21, Taiwan has 1, Malaysia has 5. It is only with China that we are in dispute.
Ilan po ulit ang total? 2 po mahigit? Mga ilan po ang total?
Walang total, that's 15, 16, I hate to say this. 16, 21, 21 and 21 is 42. 42 features.
Okay. Sa 42 features po na yon, 8 lang po ang kiniklaim ng Pilipinas, Mr. Secretary.
Oo.
Hindi po natin ikiniklaim yung iba.
Hindi.
Okay. Yung po bang ibang hindi natin kine-claim, Mr. Secretary, ay nakapasok rin sa ating EEC?
Yes.
Pero ano po ang dahilan kung
Because
bakit hindi po natin
I think,
kine-claim yung
I
iba,
think,
Mr.
hindi ko alam
Secretary?
bakit hindi sigurado ang DFA dyan, pero what I know is this, that exclusive economic zone does not give you territorial rights. What it
Opo.
does is it gives you right to exploit it in one way or another way. So we can have the Vietnamese there claiming that feature. We don't care for that feature as it is, but we may have rights on how we're going to exploit the area around that feature.
Sa madaling salita, Secretary, kine-claim pa rin natin yung EEC sa lugar na to, ngunit yung pinaka-bato mismo o yung underwater feature ay hindi natin kine-claim.
Hindi. Right? We're not or we are. You know, everything we say here, we give up. Because right now, China is listening to this. Okay, so are we giving it
I-claim
up?
natin lahat. I-claim natin lahat.
Hindi pa sigurado ang DFA. Yes, no?
I-claim nyo po lahat, Mr. Secretary.
We're claiming it. We're claiming it.
We're claiming it. We're claiming all of it, Mr. Secretary.
I don't know why we don't know that for sure.
We're claiming it. Opo.
Yes.
At sana po ay magkaisa tayo na we're claiming it kasi iisi natin ito. At sana ay makatulong po natin ang DFA sa paglilinaw na to kay Justice Carpio dahil isinusuko natin yung karapatan natin dito. Kung sasabihin China lamang yung nagke-claim, isinusuko natin yung karapatan natin dito, Mr. Secretary.
No, but tama si Mr. Chairman, tama si Carpio. It's only with China that we are in contention in these features.
But we're claiming all features, Mr. Secretary.
Even as Vietnam is claiming these features. But as you can see, we were able to live with each other. But remember, Vietnam does not send gunboats to our territory. That's the difference.
Okay. Para po malinaw tayo, Mr. Secretary, ay uulitin ko po, ang stand po natin ay ikine-claim natin lahat ng pasok sa ating EEC. Tama po ba, Mr. Secretary?
Yes.
Okay. Pero ang ating argumento sa panahon na to ay sa China lamang dahil ang China ay kine-claim lahat.
That's right. Oh.
Tama po ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At yung ibang bansa na kine-claiman rin naman natin ng ating EEC ay hindi tayo binibigyan ng sakit ng ulo at argumento nitong panahon na to, Mr. Secretary.
Yes.
Okay. Mukhang sa ganung punto ay mas malinaw na para sa ating mga kababayan, Mr. Secretary. Isa pa pong tanong mula naman sa isang netizen na mason. Nag-post po ng tanong si Paul Edward Shapno. Mahaba po yung tanong niya pero karamihan po, Secretary, nasagot mo na kanina.
Chairman, bakit wala bang registered ako na magtanong?
Tanong po niya, noong February 11, 2020, nag-send ng notice ang VFA termination sa US Embassy. Ngunit noong June 1, 2020, sumulat ang DFA para isuspend ito. Ano po ang dahilan sa pag-suspend ng VFA o Visiting Forces Agreement? May kaugnayan ba ito sa Pemberton case? Ayan, Mr. Secretary, pwede pong pakisagot?
Hindi po. There is no connection. No. There is no connection at all with the Pemberton case because remember, okay, it makes no sense. Yung mga leftist lang, medyo may topak lahat yan. Wala na akong magawa. But there cannot be any connection between one and the other. We are suspending the abrogation. Then we released Pemberton. So that was all entirely our decision. In fact, nakwento ko na yan. Kasama ko ang presidente. We were going to meet Ambassador Sung Kim, who's going away. Bigyan namin ng award. And the president asked me if it was fair to punish a prisoner because he cannot control the conditions of his confinement. Hindi siya na-observe ng Bureau of Corrections. So how can you determine if there was that good conduct allowance? Sabi niya, hindi po na naman magawa ng prisionero. Nandun siya, he's behind bars. So he said, to cut matters short, I'm going to give him a pardon. And that's it. That was the only reason. There was no exchange at all. Our president never exchanges. He's a man of integrity such as I have not seen from anybody in the opposition.
Maraming salamat sa paglilinaw, Mr. Secretary. Sa madaling salita, walang naging usapan dito. Talagang nagkataon lamang yung mga pangyayaring ito. At sa Pemberton case ay walang kinalaman sa Visiting Forces Agreement, Mr. Secretary. Napakalinaw po niyan. Ang susunod po na magtatanong ay mula naman sa minority. Sino na po ang nandyan sa minority? Si Representative Gaite ay kasama na po natin ngayon. Representative Gaite?
Maraming salamat, Chair, at sa lahat ng ating mga kapitapitagang mga bisita sa hapong ito, na lalo na sa ating pamilya sa Department of Foreign Affairs. Ikalawang beses ko na makapagtanong at noong una po ay naitanong ko na po kung bakit napakaliit ng pondo para sa ATN o Assistance to Nationals, and I think to assist our overseas Filipinos, especially our workers abroad, definitely kailangan talaga to increase. Ang aking katanungan ngayon ay patungkol po doon sa ating tulong sa ating mga manggagawa sa ibayong dagat. At nung nakaraan po, the DFA OMWA took notice of their situation after a Zoom conference organized by various organizations, including Migrante International and Mission to Seafarers last July 20, 2020. It was presented to media showing the situation of our seafarers who have been stranded off the coast of Montevideo, Uruguay since March of 2020 and have not been receiving salaries but still remain on board. Ano po ba ang status ngayon ng ating mga technically inabandon na po na ito ng kanilang LMA, ng kanilang manning agency, at nandito sila aboard FD Lu King Yuan U number 286 and FD Lu King Yuan number 287. Ano na po ba ang status nila? And similarly, ano po yung status ng ating stranded seafarers na nandito naman sa China aboard Ocean Star 8688? May mga ilan na napauwi na, pero ang information namin ay may natitira pa. Meron pang ilang barko tulad ng FD HE Lee Wan Hao and in Sri Lanka aboard FD Han Rong 349. Ano na po ba ang status ng kanilang repatriation, Mr. Chair, at sa ating mga honored guests sa hapong ito?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Secretary Locsin.
Yeah, I will refer that to Sarah. She's the one who's directly on top of all of this, and she will tell you. I think the ones from China are coming back next week. In the other cases, there are difficulties in getting any flights, but she can give you a detailed report on the status of those stranded Filipinos. Sarah, please.
The chair would like to recognize Yusek Sara Ariola.
Mr. Chair, as for dun po sa mga stranded sa China, meron pong repatriation flight na scheduled this September 28. We're just hoping that we will be allowed to bring all of them home. Actually po, dapat ito lang yung magagaling sa Xiamen, but we were also instructed by the Secretary that to bring everyone in China home. Kasi ito po yung sinasabi ni Pangulong Duterte nung nakalaang linggo na kailangan iuwi po natin ng mga seafarers. Yung pong nasa iba pa pong bahagi ng mundo, lahat po talaga, ginagawan po talaga ng natin ang paraan na may uwi sila sa lalong madaling panahon. Ang difficulty lang po natin, Mr. Chair, is yung ano po talaga, nasa laot po talaga sila at may mga lockdowns po. At yun nga po, yung DFA po ay nakikipag-ugnayan sa POEA at sa OWA po. Nagsasanib pwersa po kami at katulong po ng aming mga embahada sa ibang bansa para mapauwi po sila. Kasi kailangan din po nating gawa ng paraan para makadaong po sila eh. Kasi po hindi po sila, may mga bansa po ngayon na hindi pinapayagang mag-dock. Yung mga seafarers po dahil nga po sa COVID. Pero po, this September 28 po, yung China po, inaasahan po nating makarating po sila rito.
Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po dun sa clarification sa katanungan ng repatriation ng ating seafarers.
Yes, you may
Tama po, no?
proceed.
Komplikado dahil
Representative Gaite.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, yes, komplikado dahil nasa laot nga sila. And as I understand, the Department of Foreign Affairs, it's various offices abroad under the one country team approach is the primary agency responsible for looking after the welfare of our Filipinos abroad. So, yung positibo kahit paano meron na yung sa China September 28, wala akong bigay ng exact figure para sa ating mga iba pang mga seafarers na nabanggit, yung nasa Uruguay, Peru at iba pa, Mr. Chair.
The chair would like to recognize Yusek Sara.
Sir, hindi pa po namin mabibigay ang exact date kung kailan po sila makakauwi. Pero sisikapin po namin may uwi sila this if not by the end of the month, early next month, Your Honor. Kasi ang problema lang po talaga namin kung paano po talaga sila mapadock doon sa mga countries of destination dahil mataas din po talaga yung COVID cases. Yung iba po yun sa South America. Pero sir, we will inform Mr. Chair, the committee right away once we have a definite date. But we, so far, Mr. Chair, ang numbers po ng mga seafarers na stranded, initial po namin to, hindi pa po namin nakukuha lahat, is 147 all over the world. Ang kahirapan po nito, kalat-kalat po sila sa iba't ibang parte ng mundo. Pero susubukan po talaga gagawin po natin ng lahat para maiuwi po sila. And once we have definite dates for the other the repatriation for the other seafarers in the South America, we will inform po the committee, sir.
Okay. Representative Gaite, do you still have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I believe Congressman Ifeme Kuliamat added 3 minutes to my interpellation. Anyway,
yes, you may proceed.
Salamat po no, sa ginawang effort ng ating Department of Foreign Affairs. Dahil tama naman po, no, talagang dapat may uwi sila lalo sa panahon nitong pandemya. Balita nga natin, meron na nga ilan namatay ng mga seafarers habang nasa barko for, well, not COVID, but for other reasons. So, nakakabahala. Nandun lang daw sa refrigeration unit daw yung ilan nating mga kababayan. Pero ang balita ko, yung ilan ay naiuwi na. Pero liban po doon, ano ho pa bang assistance na bibigay natin sa ating mga seafarers? Meron kaming umabot sa aming mga reklamo na may unpaid wages sila, may mga benefits na hindi na ibigay. Marami, wala na silang ma-remit sa kanilang mga families dito sa Pilipinas, no? And of course, pag nakabalik na yung iba sa Pilipinas, dahil the prospects of being deployed again abroad has become so slim, kung kaya anong alternatives have we offered them or any services either through the DFA, the OWA, or other government agency, Mr. Chair?
Yusek Sara.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, ang DFA po, lalong-lalo na po yung mga seafarers po na naaabot namin, katulad po yung sa China, nakakapagpadala po kami ng relief goods doon sa kanilang mga ships. Pero syempre po, nakikipag-unayan po talaga kami sa POEA dahil ito pong seafarers meron po talaga silang local manning agencies at they are really under the jurisdiction of the POEA po. Pero ang DFA po, ang ginawa po namin, pinagsama-sama po namin yung mga reintegration program ng pamahalaan at nilagay po namin sa aming Facebook at pati yung mga requirements na kinakailangan at pinakalat na rin po namin sa ating mga posts. Marami pong nakalaan po from NRCO, from OWA, from DTI, TESDA, even OFW Bank po. Medyo kalat-kalat lang po talaga sila at kailangan po talaga ng information. Pero since, Your Honor, hindi po mandate talaga ng DFA yung reintegration, ang ginagawa po namin ngayon ay information dissemination. But our embassies abroad, as you said, Your Honor, under the one country team approach, is coordinating with all relevant government agencies para po bigyan ng lunas yung kanilang kalagayan. But Mr. Chair, nga nalulungkot po talaga kami sa nangyayari. We are trying our best, the best we can, to bring them home as soon as possible, Your Honor.
Representative Gaite.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the answer. Dahil tama naman, pare-parehong concern natin sa ating mga stranded na seafarers na nalalagay sa matinding panganib. And of course, the prospects of them, again, working, medyo slim na. So kung anong assistance na pwede natin ibigay to DFA or other government agency, then I thought would be most welcome. The next question is regarding the ban on healthcare workers. And I read this morning that there were discussion on the lifting, supposedly, of the ban. I would like to know, Mr. Chair, sabi dati ng ating mabuting kalihim, sabi niya po, and I quote, "The fight is not over. We will fight the ban on the IATF. We will fight the ban in cabinet. We will fight expletive for brains. We will never surrender our constitutional right to travel and our contractual right where there is need for our work." May we know the status of the said lifting? Kasi ang pagkaintindi ko, only those who have completed supposed requirements, which I'm still not so sure what qualifies as requirements, will still be allowed to work abroad as lalo na yung ating healthcare workers. Can I be clarified on this matter, Mr. Chair?
The Chair would like to recognize Secretary Locsin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the question of the lifting the ban on the deployment of nurses and healthcare workers abroad, I have IITF was of two minds. I'll tell you, the government was divided on that, and it was not a question of wanting to deny anyone's constitutional rights. There was a fear that if all our trained healthcare workers were to go abroad, where they are much valued, and we knew that, what happens and if we need them. My position was the opposite. That does not mean I was right. It's just that I felt that they have the constitutional right. They have to work where you please. Nobody can say that. Of course, there are lawyers who will say, but there is the police power of the state. In order to protect the public, you can keep them. The argument is I had friends also sa AITF, like June Esperon of National Security, wonderful man who really has a Filipino, the ordinary Filipino at heart. And he said, but we have 400,000 nursing graduates who are unemployed. Why will we detain those who are able to find jobs abroad? And so the issues were joined, and we have fought for it. And those competing concerns were real and sincere. Nobody was trying to hurt anybody just for the hell of it. But now the president has the deployment ban was lifted for a certain date, those who had contracts as of a certain date, and now the ones with completed requirements on as of August 31 will be allowed to leave also.
31.
But we cannot say that for one reason or another. It's not that. These requirements are necessary in order to protect our Filipino health professionals abroad, because there are human traffickers out there. They can tell them we are getting you for nursing jobs, and then they are put into slavery. So we cannot relax that. Before we let you go, it is our duty to make sure you really have a real job abroad. So that, I'm afraid, that will continue. Even I, the advocate of total lifting of the deployment ban, I will still insist that there be regulations to make sure that human traffickers who are all over this country are not allowed to have their will with our people, especially our Filipinas, who are the best, considered to be the best nurses in the world. So that will continue.
Representative Gaite, for your last question.
Yes, actually, salamat do sa kasagutan, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chair. Dahil yan po yung concern ng marami nating nurses, lalo na at health workers, no? Na lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya, alam ko marami sila sa kanilang gusto dito magtrabaho, provided there are opportunities for work. And of course, if the compensation will provide them a standard where they can keep body and soul together. Unfortunately, yun ang nga nangyayari sa atin dahil maraming kulang na kulang yung basweldo at benepisyo and even the protection of our healthcare workers. Marami sa kanila na lilipat sa ibang bansa, tama yung observation, they are highly appreciated abroad. There was a comment from newscasters from the United Kingdom praising our nurses abroad. And yet dito, hindi natin mabigay yung karapat-dapat na sweldo, benepisyo, proteksyon sa kanila, lalo sa panahon ng pandemya. Isang concern ko po bilang pahuling tanong, nabalitaan ko po na ang ilang embassies, ilang consuls, ibang offices ng DFA recently, ay natamaan din ng COVID-19, which also definitely has an effect on the services provided by the DFA. Of course, we have to look after also our workers, our employees in the DFA, dahil sino pa ang tutulong kung mismo yung kailangan ng yung tutulong ay nangangailangan mismo ng tulong. How many government frontliners now are stationed in foreign posts that have tested for COVID-19? Ano po ba ang mga hakbang na ginagawa natin para ma-ensure na sila ay mabigyan ng kaukulang proteksyon so far as provision of free PPEs, ensuring the testing and other measures to ensure their safety, and also at the same time, meron hong bang pondo ang DFA para ensure na itong mga requirements na ito, itong mga assistance natin sa hindi na lamang sa ating OFWs, sa mga overseas Filipinos, but also to our workers in the front lines, to ensure that the services that they provide our nationals will continue. Kasi nakakabahala, nangyari ata yan sa Saudi Arabia, where marami ang tinamaan. Obviously, ang effect nyon ay services. But of course, we also have genuine concern for the conditions of our employees in the DFA. Meron ho bang ginagawang, ano ba yung mga hakbang na ginagawa ngayon po ng DFA, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, may I
Yes,
answer?
Secretary Locsin.
Yes, thank you. Okay, the total infections is 71, but 39 are in the foreign service posts. There have been 2 deaths. I have with me. We have 2 deaths. Our policy was first is that this post would have a skeleton force. If anyone was found positive for COVID, we close it. Then I said, muna, if we keep closing it, mamaya they will close it just because they don't want to work. So we decided, I issued an order that if anyone has COVID in a post, take that person out and send him to the hospital, but the rest continue to work. Because COVID, you don't get infected of COVID by working. So the rest still report for work. So that our people, when they call our foreign posts, somebody always answers and has an answer for them. That's for sure. My order is, have your phone never on silent. Because if it is silent, believe me, I will make sure you will be silent forever. So we are always alert to serve the public. Anyway, sabi ko sa kanila, alam mo, this pandemic is not forever. You were not gonna be like this, working 24/7. It will end. I'm sure. I hope. And when it does, then we take a rest. But right now, di ba? It's happening to all of us. So the House of Representatives, there's so many people are getting sick there. But we can still continue to work. So we'll get out of this. We'll get out of this. But in the meantime, that's the figure, right? 39? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
that
Mr.
answer,
Chair.
Secretary Locsin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Perdigaite, you have already consumed your 3 minutes, plus
Yes,
the 3 minutes
yes,
given to
just
you
like to
by
manifest that.
Representative Eupemia Kulyamat. So thank you very much,
Yes, thank you for
Representative.
the time. And we like to assure the good secretary that the resources needed to provide assistance not only to our nationals but also to our fellow employees of the DFA should be sufficient to ensure the COVID response is adequate. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you very much, Congressman Perdigaite. Next, the chair would like to recognize from the majority, Representative Macnel Lusotan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please proceed now, Congressman Macnel Lusotan.
My dear colleagues, Secretary Locsin, and the DFA family, good afternoon. My concern, Mr. Chair, regarding the circular issued by the Office of the Undersecretary for Civilian Security and Consular Concern, dated August 28, 2020, requiring disembarking foreign seafarers to apply for 9C visa. So my question, is DFA pursuing this order requiring 9C visa for disembarking foreign seafarers? Mr. Chair.
Secretary Locsin.
Yes, I have here the official concern. Yusek Dudulay.
Your Honor, Chair, yung pong 9C visa po na yan, na ni-require po sa circular, yan po ay sang-ayon doon po sa joint circular ng Green Lanes. So yung po ipinututupad lang po namin, yung pong joint circular ng Green Lanes na pinirmahan po ng 8 ahensya, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. So dati naman po, kahit po pre-COVID, alam na po natin na lahat po ng seafarers ay kailangan po pagpapasok po ng Pilipinas. Kailangan po naman po nila ng 9C visa. So yan po ay wala po kami ipinututupad na hindi po sang-ayon sa regulasyon po na nailabas na po, Your Honor, Chair.
No, but you were telling me that some people want to skip that?
Yes,
to make it cheaper?
Well, ganito po kasi, Mr. Chair,
Or agency?
dati po kasi, ang sinusunod po natin proseso at siguro po nasanay po yung ating mga local mining agency na humihingi lang po ng exemption. Ibig sabihin po, dadaong po dito yung mga barko at saka lang po kukuha ng permiso. Kaya naman po ang ginawa po natin, pinabilis po natin, Congressman, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, yung proseso. Naglabas na po tayo ngayon for the first time po, meron na po proseso na pwede po sila mag-apply na po ng online crew list visa. So kahit hindi pa po sila umaalis sa kanilang last port of call, sila po ay pwede po mag-apply. Online lang po ito. Napakabilis po dito. Napabilis po dahil po sa circular na inisyu po ni Secretary Locsin na inuutusan po at inasa ng ating mga embassy at consulate na i-process po ito. Kahit po ito ay online, tinanggap na rin po ng Bureau of Immigration na tatanggapin po nila ang tinatawag po na electronic copy of the visa. Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the reply. Representative Lusotan, do you still have a follow-up question?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please proceed.
Kasi Mr. Chair, dalawa itong foreign seafarer. Yung joining, yun ang dapat i-require natin ng 9C visa. Pero itong mga disembarking, Mr. Chair, kasi karamihan ng mga barko ngayon is stranded at sea. So may mga barko na dinivert na lang dahil dito sa ating Green Lane Protocol for crew change. So halimbawa, last week, yung International Mariners Management Association of Japan wrote a letter to the Department of Transportation informing PPA General Manager that they will be diverting around 90 vessels per month or an average of 3 to 4. May mga pagkakataon, Mr. Chair, na nasa laot yung yung mga barko, bigla na lang nag-decide na i-divert dito sa Pilipinas. Kung i-impose natin itong 9C visa, Mr. Chair, wala na silang panahon kasi some of itong mga ship owners nag-decide within 3 days na malapit na tayo sa Pilipinas, i-divert na lang natin. And anong maganda dito, Mr. Chair, sa bawat barko na mag-angkor for cruisings, ito lang kinumpute namin na 90,000 gross registered tonnage. Nagbabayad ito ng revenue ng $15,732 US. So imagine natin yung Japan lang, 90 vessels ang pwede nila i-divert per month. Ilan ba itong 90? Sa tag $15,000 US. So mahigit ito 1.4 million US times 48. Revenue ito na around 67.9 million. Itong malaki pa din na gumagawa na nag-divert dito yung Greece na number 1 na ship owning nation, yung mga Greek. Mayroon pa tayong China at saka Norway. So aside sa doon sa regular secretary at saka Yusik na nagpo-prochance dito, may mga pagkakataon na nag-divert sila. Ang advantage kung nag-divert sila, kasi yung mga post ng mga foreign national, mapalitan yon ng ating mga Pilipino. Kasi ang papalit sa kanila, wala pa, nandoon pa sa kanilang bansa. So hindi kami, sang-ayon kami doon sa 9C, yung mga mag-join dito. Kasi from their country, lilipat sila dito sa airport natin, so kailangan sila ng visa. Pero itong mga nag-disembark na dito na lang for nag-divert sila, sana makonsider natin ito. Kasi on the same date, on August 28, Mr. Chair, yung Maritime Port Authority of Singapore, nag-enhance sila ng cruisings. And they even consider compassionate grounds. Pinababa nila. Ano yung compassionate ground? Yung date of the family member. Crew is no longer medically fit to work on board the ship. Then, yung change of crew due to sale or purchase ng barko. At doon sa, Mr. Chair, sa India, inallow nila, pina-apply nila ng TLP, Temporary Landing Permit. Kasi kinonsider nila na dahil na stranded itong mga seafarers, malamang yung visa, passport nila ay hindi na valid. So inallow nila through temporary landing permit ang mga foreign seafarers. As long na para ba Yusik yung sa Greenland natin na within 4 hours pagbaba nila sa port, dapat nandoon na sila sa airport at escorted naman ito sila ng taga Bureau of Migration. So sana ma-consider natin ito, lalo na nangangailangan tayo ng revenue at saka yung employment at remittances. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Macnel Lusotan. Any response from DFA?
Yes, Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po sa tanong ni Congressman Lusotan. Ito po ay nagpapatunay na yung pong ating joint circular sa Greenland na pinunganahan po ng Department of Foreign Affairs ay tumatalab po. At talagang tama po si Congressman Lusotan, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, na gagawin po natin yan para tayo po ang maging crew change destination o crew change hub. At pinapangako po kay Congressman Lusotan na pag-aaralan po natin kung ano po ang pwedeng enhancement po na magawa sapagkat kailangan naman po namin kausapin yung iba pong ahensa para pumayag po sila sapagkat nasa joint circular po natin ito ngayon. So titingnan po natin paano po natin mamiyandahan. Pero napakaganda po na suggestion po ni Congressman Lusotan po, Your Honor, Chair. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Sik Luxen.
Okay, thank you very much, Representative Macnel Lusotan of Marino Party List. Next, the chair would like to recognize from the minority, Next, the chair would like to recognize from the majority, Representative Edgar Chato.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon or good evening. Can you hear me from there?
Yes, we can hear you, Congressman Chato. You may now proceed with your interpellation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have asked direct questions to the Department of Foreign Affairs many times over in the past, so I don't intend to ask questions now. Let me just take this opportunity to make some manifestations. I am too happy to see again our DFA Secretary, Secretary Tadiboy Locsin, who has been my good friend and co-worker in Congress before, quite a long time since we last met. And of course, let me inform Secretary Locsin and the chair and our fellow members that we have been very, very thankful to the DFA in the many collaborations that we have undertaken, most especially in the COVID response. And also in our dealings with our OFWs. Bohol is one of the provinces with the largest number of OFWs. And let me give special recognition to our Office of Migrant Workers, Secretary Tadiboy. We've been very happy with how Yusek Sara is handling that office. She can be reached anytime, day and night. And of course, our Philippine embassies abroad, our consuls general, our labor attaches, our POLO, and the OWA offices also coordinating. There is just one case, Yusek Sara knows this already, of the OFW in Dubai, who was a victim of an explosion. And until now, the family is awaiting for clarification on whether or not the body can be exhumed, because the original intention and plan was really to bring home the body, the remains, but for whatever reason, under investigation by DFA and our embassy in Dubai or Consulate General's office, they're still checking on why the body instead was buried there instead of being transported here. In Bohol, Secretary and Chair, Mr. Chair, has a pending request way back for a DFA office in the province of Bohol. Especially now under the COVID situation, we are feeling the need, because Cebu is also imposing its own restrictions on travel. This is not only for DFA. Bohol is lobbying for other offices without any base office in Bohol, but only in Cebu, the regional center. We are hoping to bring in satellite offices of these departments. So once again, let me pay respects and recognition to the professionalism, the dedication and commitment of our DFA officials. And this speaks really well for the government and the Filipino people. So thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions for the DFA, but the strong support for its budget as well. Thank you also, Secretary Tadiboy and the rest of the DFA family.
Thank you very much, Representative Edgar Chato from the province of Bohol. Next, the chair would like to recognize from Bohol, we go to Catanduanes, Representative Hector Sanchez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, good afternoon, distinguished
Secretary.
gentlemen from Catanduanes. You may now proceed with your interpellation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. In terms of regional allocation, all regional offices will only receive budget shares of less than 1% each. Outside Metro Manila, the biggest allocation is only 0.08%, while most regions will receive 0.01%. My question is this enough to fund the programs, activities, and projects of the DFA outside of Metro Manila? Mr. Secretary.
Secretary Locsin, you may
Yes,
now
I'd like
respond to the
I'd like
query
to
of
refer back to our
Congressman
finance
Sanchez.
person. Our finance person, you said, Asek Myla? Asek Myla.
Yes, ASEC, the chair would recognize ASEC Myla to respond to the query of Congressman Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. The operations of the department outside of Metro Manila will largely be its consular offices in the different cities outside Manila. On average, a consular office will have an MOOE outlay of about 8.3 million, sir. So the location of these consular offices runs from as far up as Baguio, and then in Mindanao we have, I think, 3 at this time, sir. Davao is the biggest. So in terms of regional allocation, really it depends on where the actual consular office is located, but you can work on an 8.3 million budget per consular officer.
Thank you, ASEC Myla. Representative Sanchez, you may proceed with your next question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Among the programs with discontinuance, the next highest discontinuance is the Consular Assistance to Nationals program, which amounts to 265.4 million. This comprises the provision of consular and related services nationwide and abroad. My question is, how will this affect the mobile passport services in the cities or municipalities outside Metro Manila and abroad? Mr. Chairman.
ASEC Myla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Like any deduction in the budget, it will have an adverse effect on us in that it will limit the capacity of the department to undertake consular operations in these cities and cities where we have COs. For NBC 580, the reduction was actually a partial reduction of the operating expenses for the 4 consular offices that should have been opened in that we opened in 2019, namely Antique, San Jose, Paniquit, Tarlac, Pagadian, and Olongapo. There was partial grant, but the substantial sum, practically about 50 to 60% of the MOE, was part of the NBC 580 compliance. What the department is asking for FY 2021 is actually the reinstatement of about 1.2 billion of the projects granted in FY 2020 that had to be discontinued as part of the compliance plan of the DFA for NBC 580, sir.
Thank you. Congressman Sanchez, do you still have another follow-up question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask a favor to the God Secretary that for my province, we do not have any DFA satellite. So may I request to the God Secretary, even just only once a week, can you please send a representative maybe to take care of the passport of our constituents, Mr. Secretary?
Secretary Locsin.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, let me assure the good congressman that yes, once a week I will do it. Of course, the usual excuse is to say if we have the money, but I've always said that's never an excuse. We will find the money, even if I have to get it out of our own hides. But that's the least you deserve, a once a week satellite visit. Absolutely, and I hope that's done. I don't care. Of course, there are COVID restrictions now, but still, to the extent we can, I will. And when things normalize, you will definitely see us there. I promise that, Mr. Congressman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Congressman Sanchez, you already have the commitment from the good secretary that they will find a way and visit your province, the province of Catanduanes, once a week.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And last, just only a commendation to the excellent performance of the secretary. And of course, I would like to make mention on our OWA administrator, Hans Leo Kakdak, of his very, very good, same as you, Secretary. Sa probinsya po namin, pinaparating po sa inyo ang malaki pong pasasalamat ho, because one of our OFW was said to in I think Saudi Arabia, in the name of Charlene Asuncion. Pinararating po ng buong pamilya ang pasasalamat po, Mr. Secretary. And again, Mr. Chairman, I would like to manifest to add more budgets to DFA dahil po ito po lang ang pag-asa po natin para sumagip doon sa mga kababayan tang nasa abroad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much, Congressman Hector Sanchez. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Micaela Violago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. I have one question lang po, Mr. Chair, regarding dun sa ating mga investors, mga foreign investor, particularly yung mga galing po sa China. Are they allowed to go in the Philippines na po? Or hindi pa rin sila allowed?
Secretary Locsin.
You, Secretary Dulay, USEC Dulay, please.
Undersecretary Dulay, you may proceed to respond to the query of Vice Chair Micaela Violago from the province of Nueva Ecija.
Vice Chair, Your Honor, Chairman, good afternoon po. Sa ngayon po, yung pong pagdating po ng foreign nationals ay yung po ay ang IATF po ang naglalabas po ng resolusyon kung sino po ang makakapasok. Sa ngayon po, ang pinapapasok pa lang naman po ngayon ay yung pong mga kamag-anak po ng mga Filipino nationals, yung pong mga seafarers po dahil sa ating crew change, yung pong mga diplomat, at siyempre po yung ating mga Filipino citizens. Pero meron po on a case-to-case basis naman po, Vice Chair, Congressman, Your Honor, at saka Chairman, pwede naman po pag sila po ay essential po sa isang government agency na kailangan po sila, maaari po sila naman po ay humingi po ng exemption po, Vice Chair. So kung depende po sa kanilang pakay at sa kanilang po negosyo, pwede po silang dumulog po sa kaukulang department po at yun naman po ay pag-aaralan po at bibigyan po ng DFA ng tulong po.
So that's with the endorsement of the department concerned.
Yes, the endorsement of the department.
Maraming salamat po.
You
Kasi
may
may
proceed.
mga kaibigan tayo na Mr. Chair na galing sa China na gusto nang bumalik ng Pilipinas para po umpisahan na muli yung kanilang transaction dito. Dahil nga po sa hindi pa pinapayagan daw sila na makabalik, kaya pati po yung ating mga gusto makipaghanap buhay sa kanila na mga Pilipino ay hindi pa po may mangyari. Kaya that's why I'm asking kung sila ay allowed na ba? Kasi parang there's na meron dapat yata visa, something like that, na sinasabi yung mga na they should get a visa just or hindi ko po maintindihan kung anong dapat ang kunin nila just para po makapunta na ng Pilipinas.
Chair, Your Honor, Chair.
Yes, Yusek, you may now reply.
Chair, ano lang po, siguro po, una po, linawin lang po natin, ang mga Chinese nationals po kasi ay ano po yan, mga kailangan po talaga po ng visa. Sila para makapasok po sa bansa natin. Ano. So, hindi po bago yung dati na po yun, Your Honor. At siguro po, kailangan lang po, Your Honor, sulat lang po kayo sa amin. I-specify na po sino-sino sila. At siguro titingnan po natin kung sila po ay yung business para po magawan po natin ng tulong po, matulungan po natin.
Tapos with the endorsement of the DTI.
Yan, endorsement ng DTI po o depende po kung anong ahensya po sila involved in negosyo nila, Your Honor. So, ready naman po ang department po sa inyo.
Thank you po. Thank you po, Secretary Roxanne. Thank you po. Mr. Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mickey Violago. Next, the chair would like to recognize from the City of Cebu, Representative Raul Delmar.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and to the good secretary who has been a colleague for so many years and distinguished himself as a very good congressman. Now, I've been waiting here for 3 hours, and all my concerns have already been advanced and answered adequately by the good secretary. So let me just make a brief manifestation that we really appreciate the good performance of the secretary. Way back when his confirmation, the confirmation of his appointment was brought before the Commission on Appointments, and I was one of the members of the House panel at that time. That was about 2 years ago. I distinctly recall that I was one of those who seconded the motion, knowing that Secretary Locsin will make a good secretary. But then, after following his performance for the last 2 years, I was wrong, Mr. Chairman. Wrong because he did not only prove to be a good congressman, a good secretary, but he proved to be a great secretary, the greatest ever, insofar as I'm concerned. And rather than mentioning all his talents, which makes up his very good performance, I would not anymore dwell into that. At least I'd be taken to give a tribute to the secretary, which will come at some future appropriate time. But let me just make a particular mention of his being quick on the draw and shooting straight, diplomatically, not in responding through his stinging replies to disparaging statements made by officials of other countries who made remarks disparaging our country and our people. And so I know that there are others to follow, so that I will not waste more time with the committee. Because having said that, I would like to, but this is not the time for it also, to second the motion of Hector Sanchez. But let me join him in respectfully requesting the chair and the members of this committee to show our appreciation not through mere words but in action, and that is we should respectfully increase, double at least the budget of the DFA for the good work under the leadership of Secretary Locsin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Raul Del Mar of the City of Cebu. Next, the chair would like to recognize from the province of Pangasinan, Representative Tyrone Agabas.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please proceed now, Representative Tyrone Agabas.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to let the Secretary know that I like his style. And true enough, we have to protect our sovereignty, and we cannot just let foreign powers rob us off of our sovereignty. Having said that, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, I understand that you have sent or submitted a letter to the House of Representatives opposing the proposed sale of the Roppongi property and 3 others in Japan. Can you please expound on that, Mr. Secretary?
Secretary Locsin.
Yes, we did. We sent a letter. We said that the department wishes to convey the honorable committee its reservations and proposals to lease, develop, or use the properties given by the Japanese government to the Philippines under the reparations agreement, which includes Roppongi and Nampei-dai properties in Tokyo, Noniwacho, Obanoyama in Kobe. These properties owned by the Philippine government, the Kudan property, was purchased by the Philippine government in 1944 and does not form part of the properties under the reparations agreement. In any case, I do in principle oppose to the disposition of government assets. I remember that a great part of Quezon City was reserved by President Quezon as a patrimony for the future of the future generations of our country, and I hesitate to sell any of our Roppongi properties, or for that matter, other properties abroad. We had, I believe, 64 in New York State, and nothing bad about it. But over time, it was all disposed of, and now we need them. I would prefer that we keep it. And if perhaps I am wrong, then one must wait until I leave, because I have made a vow that I shall never lose a property of the Republic by sale or lease or any other method. This began in the time of Cory Aquino, when we took power by overthrowing Marcos. The first thing that the businessmen around us wanted was to sell our Japanese properties, and although they were with us in the fight against Marcos, I went out of my way to fight it to the end, and I did. I believe I succeeded. We cannot alienate these properties. If there are needs that must be met, perhaps for veterans, well, I remember that the Fort Bonifacio properties were sold for the veterans, and I don't think the veterans got anything out of it. So I think, I'm sorry, but I cannot agree to that. I'm keeping this because when I think of my country, I think not only of the present, but of the future. And I don't want to be one of those to whom the future will look back and say, we had something and we lost it. I don't want to be the one. Perhaps others want to be the one, but later on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Congressman
I share your
Agabas, you may
sentiment.
now continue.
Yeah, I share the sentiment of the good secretary, because it is not just an issue of entitlement, but an issue of patrimony. So thank you so much for your stand, Mr. Secretary. And lastly, I just would like to commend our Vice Consul in Singapore, Jenny Benyahan. She's very supportive to our cause in Pangasinan. So with that, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much and good evening.
We'll let him know. Thank you so much. Please convey the spirit.
Thank you very much, Congressman Tyrone Agabas from the province of Pangasinan. Next, from Pangasinan, we go to the city of Cagayan de Oro, Representative Rufus Rodriguez. You are now recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Manix Delipe of Zamboanga Hermosa. Good afternoon to
Secretary Locsin, and the officialdom of the DFA. Let me first thank the Secretary, the good Secretary, because my letters to him, to the department, requesting for my constituents. First, for example, when they are being oppressed by their employers and they need to go home, there is support from the DFA. Second, my constituents who are hospitalized and have difficulty in being able to pay the bills, we ask the Secretary to help to look at their situation. And thirdly, some of our constituents would die in abroad, and they would need to their remains to be repatriated. And with that, I'd like to thank the Secretary, and with him, of course, I would like to thank ASEC Voltaire Mauricio, our liaison officer from the DFA, who had been very helpful to the congressmen, including Nomar Postre, whom we always asked for the support. And there has been gratitude of my constituents. Because, you know, as congressman, we receive all these texts and requests, and we have to act and ask the Secretary. So we'd like to also thank ASEC Neil Ferrer. There are certain instances when our constituents would ask for issuance or renewal of passports because of emergency medical reasons, and the kind ASEC Neil Ferrer would give facility to those in need. And my question now is in relation to the budget. Do we have sufficient funds for 2021 for assistance to Filipinos abroad?
Secretary Locsin.
Mr. Chair and Congressman, we have 1 billion. That is our assistance to nationals fund. As I was saying earlier, I know that the whole government is under pressure to meet the COVID crisis. So when the president asked me very early on, he was on the ball and he said, we have to move. And then he turns to me and says, "Ikaw, do you need any money?" And I said, "No, I will realign my budget." Because true, we have our own budget and we have they are committed to different activities, but in an emergency and until that emergency is over, no, I'm willing to tighten my belt and get as much done with what I have. And I believe our budget this year is even less, right? Yeah, it's just we know that you suffer from the same constraints in this pandemic. So, and if anything comes up, we will turn to you. We know you are the house of the people. I came from you, and I know that you will listen to me if it comes to that. So, thank you for your concern.
Thank you, Secretary. My next question is, for 2021, do we have a sufficient budget for the legal fund for Filipinos national abroad?
Secretary Locsin.
Yes, we have the same amount. So far, we have not exhausted it. We were very close to exhausting it, but well, I guess we are almost 2/3 of the year over. So perhaps it's enough. But if again, we welcome any addition to the budget, and as I can tell you that even when we have it, but the emergency comes out again as bad as it did this year, we'll be prepared to surrender it anyway, because we did that. We had the budget for retrofitting. We had the budget. We just gave it back. What's more important is that the people are cared for.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Chairman, my next question is...
yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question to the Secretary is, how much budget did you propose to the DBM, and how much was given by the DBM?
Secretary Locsin.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask ASEC Myla to answer that. She has the precise figures.
Yes, ASEC Myla, how much did you ask from DBM, and how much did the Department of Budget and Management give DFA?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. The original submission of the DFA for its FY 2021 budget proposal stands at about 32.3 billion. What is included in the National Expenditure Program is a total of 22.966 for the DFA and its 4 attached agencies. For DFA, main or the DFA core, DFA OSEC is only about 22 billion.
Okay, Congressman Rodriguez.
Thank you. With the permission of the chair, my next question is what essential and necessary funds should be restored by the DBM to the DFA for it to be able to discharge its really very important functions for not only for the mandate abroad but also for our consulate in the Philippines. We will know what will be these items which should be restored so that we can put our DFA into a very good position to comply with their mandate.
Thank you very, very much. We have it listed here. I won't go through the whole list, but we call it the Tier 2 budget proposal for reconsideration, proposed programs for fiscal year 2021, such things as additional accountable forms for the e-passport booklets, additional fund, because we need these funds, since anything we get from the passport business goes to National Treasury. We need this for the apostille certificates, additional funds for the purchase of PPEs because and swab testing because we have our frontliners. We have ICT projects in the Home Office and the Foreign Service Post because I promise that the success with which we had the ASEAN meetings through Zoom means that we will be saving on travel. We'll all be back and we'll all stay in our capitals and we'll talk to each other from across the world. There are also consular outreach programs about which your colleagues in the House are very concerned. For foreign service posts, we have the need to open foreign service posts for the opening of foreign service posts. Also, we have what is the additional budget for? There's a consulate in particular in Barcelona. This may sound like a small thing, but remember the OSG defends us, so we would like a budget in order to give honorarium to OSG lawyers who represent the DFA in various cases. There is also the International Commitment Fund. This is important. I came from Congress, and how much when I went into the United Nations, the bodies there would come to me and say, "Thank you so much for the generosity of the Philippines for contributing to multilateral efforts." I said, "Wow, I didn't know we could do that." And it turns out that we give small amounts of money, but making the effort to do it, they recognize us, and we have that kind of standing. It would be nice if we could continue, because when we're in trouble, they do come across, as happened in Yolanda. In fact, we get back more than we give out. So that would be nice. It looks like throwing money to the foreigners, but no, it raises our standing abroad, and then we don't have to look like always beggars. In other words, we give when we can. We expect help when we need it. We have also we have additional financial expenses in the Home Office, Foreign Service Post, augmentation of rent in Chancery from existing contracts. Rents go up, although maybe in this pandemic they will go down. We want to improve the compensation of local hires and others within the DFA. We depend a great deal on contract workers, and we're hoping that perhaps one day in the future they could be regularized. We also need money for the design development of DFA digital archives and institutional repositories. We need that because foreign affairs is about memory and memory and history, and we need access to that as fast as we can. What else have we have? Additional personnel requirement for foreign service posts, increase in hardship post allowance. But as I was saying, when we talk to our experts about increasing living allowance, I said I don't like this. The allowance goes up as the person's rank goes up. As far as I know, we all eat the same, whether we are down or up. It's the same requirements for living. So I'm equalizing that for the sake of justice. And we have also important cultural projects. The Centro Rizal projects for foreign service posts. The ban is known all over the Latin American, the Hispanic world. And quite a lot of others. It's quite long. But I would like a consideration of what we call Tier 2. Please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, may I just like to ask how
Yes,
much?
Congressman Rodriguez.
Thank you. How much would be the more important, the necessary amount that would be able for you to implement, especially those that you have mentioned? How much would this be in money terms, Secretary?
Mr. Chair, I would like to refer that to Myla. She will give the exact figure. I don't want to make a mistake. ASEC Myla, please.
Yes,
Not
the
probably-
chair would like to recognize ASEC Myla to respond to the query of the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. The total request of the Department of Foreign Affairs for its Tier 2 submissions on top of the National Expenditure Program provision is essentially grouped into three main items. We have set amounting to 1.77 billion that covers what we believe is actually Tier 1 mandatory, like increased rents, etc. A second component amounting to 1.255 billion, sir, covers the projects that were discontinued in pursuance of NBC 580. We also have a third list, which was mentioned by Secretary Luxin, which consists of 44 projects amounting to 8 billion, which are truly new or expansion projects. I know the number is a bit high, but that's based on initial projection of new and expanded projects for the DFA for FY 2021.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
ASEC
Thank you,
Myla.
Mr. Chair.
Congressman Rodriguez, for your last question, you
Yes,
may now
before
proceed.
my last question, probably we can ask the DFA. I have computed the three categories, and they will amount to really about 11 billion, almost the same as that was slashed. So probably a middle ground. You know, the judiciary was slashed 12 billion, but they're only asking for 6 billion. That are the basic needs to be able to have for next year. So probably we can ask from the good secretary a figure which will not be the 11 billion, but they are able to give us an amount which are really necessary, probably to the tune of at least about 5 billion, because it will be difficult really to restore the entire budget of 11 billion that was slashed. So that's my comment on that. But my last question, Mr. Chairman, is this. So if the secretary can submit that to the committee, we will work hard, Mr. Chairman, with the leadership of our committee chairman, with the Committee on Appropriations, to be able to add to the NEP, the NEP of the DFA. But my last question will be this: would the secretary support House Bill 7673, which is an act adjusting the monthly pension and disability of retirees of the DFA, because many of them have retired, of only receiving about 20,000+ a month, and they deserve to have more. And as last one will be on, may we know the how much increase we've given to our educational assistance to our DFA personnel abroad, and whether the coverage has also been increased. So increase in the rate of assistance to education to the dependents of our personnel abroad, and also the coverage. So these two last questions. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to ask these questions to the Honorable Secretary.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez from the City of Golden Friendship, for the response.
Yes.
Secretary Locsin.
Mr. Chair, Congressman, 5 billion is perfect figure. And as I said, whatever we get, even like we had last year, if the emergency comes out again in the same scale, we will of course give it up at once. With regard to the pensions, yes, although I kind of get controversial in foreign policy, foreign affairs, etc. But what's really closest to my heart is the security and well-being of the people of the DFA. When we were in Congress, I remember, and it was a question of who could you trust the most to implement the Overseas Voting Act, and all of us said DFA, the most professional. And all the poor people, they didn't even know. In praising them, we were giving them more work. But it is true. However, their compensation is really leaves a lot to be desired. And I hope, above all, the retirement, and then, of course, in the educational funds, you have always a chance. And remember, they work very hard, but they will always find time for education abroad. That would really further enhance their efficiency, their skills, their wisdom. Please, I would really appreciate the support of the House in this. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And so finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to congratulate Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin for his outstanding performance as our head of the Department of Foreign Affairs, fighting it out for us, for our territory, and for the interests of Filipinos, especially abroad. Thank you very much, Secretary. We look forward to support you and in the plenary be able to have that increase, because that is needed to be able to keep our DFA really in that position to discharge your functions well. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Locsin, and to our good people in the Department of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez of the city of Cagayan de Oro. From Cagayan de Oro, we now go to the city of Pines, Baguio. Congressman Mark Go, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like also to congratulate Secretary Locsin for doing a good job in DFA. We are very happy that we have a branch office here in the city of Baguio, and that helps a lot of our people here in the Cordillera in getting their visa, their passports, and have the services of DFA in our city. I would like to ask Mr. Secretary, did the DFA get affected with the implementation of the NBC 580, Mr. Chair?
Well, yes.
Secretary Locsin.
The reduction, we quickly yielded everything that was wanted. We've rid of our retrofitting, right? Retrofitting, and we've done away with a lot of programs that we needed, because we all recognized that that the COVID emergency took precedence over everything else. We have no regrets. We're expecting things to get better. And as I said, should we get any increases, or even what we ask for, we'll be prepared to make the same sacrifice again, because it's really for everyone. So
Mr. Chair, the budget that we approve in the 2020 GAA for DFA is 24,220 million, and the NEP of 2021 says that their budget is 21,965 million. Would it be okay? Of course, Congressman Rupos suggested that we add additional 5 billion pesos for your budget in 2021. What are you, if you will look at the MOE here, the reduction is huge. It's 1.248 billion. What are the programs that you are supposed to implement probably in 2020 that you might not be able to do in 2021 because of the reduction of your MOE of 1.2 billion, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr.
Secretary.
Chair. I refer that to ASEC Myla.
The chair would like to recognize ASEC Myla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. For the DFA's compliance of NBC 580, we actually lost or volunteered as part of the mandatory savings under the circular a total of 1.255 billion worth of projects. The major project that had to be given up for NBC was 50% reduction in the capital outlay of the retrofitting project of the main DFA building. But in addition to that, a good number of Congress-initiated amendments in FY 2020 GAA also got included in the NBC 580 submission. Amongst these are specific augmentation of MOE budgets for posts like, in particular, Riyadh. It was supposed to have 80 million for the construction of a multi-purpose hall for use of the OFWs in the area. There was also a provision for purchase of armored vehicle for Tripoli PE given the security situation there, and several cultural diplomacy programs that had to be given up for NBC. Another major aspect that NBC took out from the budget last year was funding for the opening of 3 foreign service posts. These are for the areas where we really have very minimal representation, namely in Africa for Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. We also initially planned for the opening of a post in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and one in Kazakhstan at the capital in Nur Sultan. So these projects amounting to again 1.255 billion, we're asking as part of Tier 2 for reinstatement, hopefully.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Asek Myla. Congressman Marco.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yusek Myla. On the personal services, you have a reduction here of about 263 million for 2021. And I would like to know why is this the case?
Asek Myla.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Oh, well, it did not actually mean that there was a reduction in the pay or in the allowances of personnel. Parts of the department's PS budget are intended for RLIP, retirement and life insurance premiums, and that part may have been inadequate for our operations in 2020. But that said, we'd also like to point out that actually for the PS itself, because that's tier 1 and that's really decided upon by the DBM, any shortfall in the PS component for the agency, we can ask DBM for augmentation for PS. And for the last 3 years, actually, the one that is in the GAA is not often enough, largely because of changes in retirement profiles, how much you actually have to spend for actual personnel that are in the service for that year. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as a
Yes.
follow-up to the pay and benefits of our people outside the country, how competitive are we as far as pay and benefits of our people working in other countries in similar economic, I would say, status, Mr. Chair?
Asek Myla, would you reply to the query of Congressman Margo? You'll be the one. Secretary Locsin.
Yes, no.
Secretary Locsin.
The head of personnel can explain more.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, we have been conducting studies. We have been doing our research, finding out how competitive is the pay we give our personnel abroad. And I think in comparing our personnel with countries similarly situated, I think we're a little less competitive. And we have been doing studies, and we have been asking consultants to help us. And we will present an updated recommendation on how to increase the allowances and salaries of our personnel. Thank you.
So you're saying that we are even below the median. We do not even belong the 50 percentile of the salaries and benefits of countries in the same condition, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we have I have served in 8 different foreign service posts, and every time I served in these countries, we share notes with our friends. We even asked officially for, in a few cases, to compare the salaries and allowances. And in many cases, in terms of living quarters, our colleagues in many other countries similarly situated are living in more highly representative areas, and in terms of education allowance for those with children, many of our personnel do not bring their children with them because the education allowance we receive would not be enough to pay for tuition fees in reputable and good quality schools. So we allow them to have some kind of allowance even if their children stay home and study in the Philippines. We have been comparing notes, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, and I think on the whole there is a really need to adjust the salaries and allowances. And I understand it's been over 10 years since there was an executive order that adjusted the salaries and allowances of our personnel. It's probably high time, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, to make some adjustments.
For your last question, Congressman Mark Go, you may proceed.
I would like to ask the Secretary, given this situation, how much do you think do we need to budget so that we can make our pay and benefits of our people assigned abroad competitive to countries that are similarly situated?
I don't want to give a figure off the top of my head, but if I know now that we have a friend in the house, so we'll make that study and present it to you on how we can make. It is not to make us more competitive, but how to make the pay received by them more competitive. Because I'll tell you what I observe, and I'm an outsider. Remember, I'm not career, and I watched, for example, in the United Nations. The peculiarity of the Filipino diplomat is that you have other countries when an issue comes up, they actually come to our people and they say, can you help us write this? Can you help us explain this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how much we are trusted, both in our skill and in our integrity. And I remember when I would give my 3-minute speech. I can squeeze anything into 3 minutes. And then they would come to me and say, can you help us with this? And I said, you don't have to tell me what side you're on, but I'll tell you how that's done. And that's the reputation of the Filipino diplomat, someone who you can actually transport anywhere. You know why they are not competitive? Because they are hamstrung by one thing, a sense of love of country, patriotism that tells them we won't move. When I go to other embassies there, especially the rich countries, Filipinos are running the show, and of course I treat them as if they were Middle Eastern or what. I don't want to get too familiar because they serve their ambassadors and their embassies, but they are really a premium attraction in the diplomatic world, almost everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just that in Filipinos, they want to go home. They want to stay and do the diplomatic work for which they studied. And the longer they work, the harder the life is, but still the harder for them to let go until it's time to retire. And then of course, the retirement is off. But maybe this year we can do something at least about that,
yes,
and then perhaps about other parts.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, I'm really interested to find that out because my background is in human resource management. We would like to be sure that people are compensated for what they do, and at the same time, they are not only internally equitable in terms of pay and benefits, but externally competitive. And that's how we bring pride also in our country by, paying our people the way they should be paid, and they can speak for the country more if they know that they can stand side by side with other countries' employees and members of the diplomatic corps. So again, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and we fully support the increase of the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Thank you at magandang gabi po.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Congressman Mark Go from the city of Baguio. From Baguio, we go now to the province of Bohol. The chair would like to recognize Representative Christine Alexi Tutor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Magandang gabi po sa lahat. Mr. Chair, this is a concern raised by a netizen. I would like to ask our good secretary the current status of our Philippine embassy, particularly in Guam, whether they are in operation or whether they are open or not, and what to do in order to get a travel visa for Guam residents going to the Philippines. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Secretary Locsin.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you're saying? Mr. Chair?
Are you able to understand, Mr. Secretary, the question of Representative Christine Alexi Tutor?
Yes, I did. Is our post functional? Yes, it is. And if there is any complaints that they are not responding, I got one on Twitter, and we sent them already an alert that they have to be on the ball. And so yes, it is. It is. There's no, as I said, I sent an order out to everyone that COVID is no excuse for not working. Even fear of infection is no excuse of not being on the job. When our people need you, they call, you have to answer. So if there's
Mr.
any,
Chairman,
I'm very open to that.
yes, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, thank you for
Congresswoman, please
that.
proceed.
Secretary, for the good news. Kasi po, yung mga problema po ng mga residente po natin is they want to go home, but it seems like the embassy are being also locked down. So it's good to hear that you have given a mandate. Thank you po, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Chairman, yun lang po ang tanong ko. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to do something about that at once.
Congresswoman Tutor?
Yes po, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you very much, Congresswoman Christine Alexi Tutor from the province of Bohol. From Bohol, we now go to the city of love. Tama ba yan?
Yes.
Iloilo City, Representative Jam Baronda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair of the Secretary and the DFA family. This is just a follow-up question from DS Fernandez kanina. Is there a projected decrease in passport production given that the validity of the e-passport is extended to 10 years? What is the basis of this special provision, Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Chair.
Secretary Locsin?
Yes, I would like to refer this to ASEC for help, please. ASEC.
The chair would like to recognize ASEC Frank Ferrer to reply to the query of Representative Jam Baronda.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Well, in terms of the implementation of the 10-year passport validity started in 2018, and what we have seen actually since 2018 up to last year was that there were increase actually in terms of passport issuances and production. So I believe, Your Honor, it will still take some more time before we will see a plateau in terms of the demand for passport. But certainly, we have seen for the past 2 years that it has increased. Of course, this year, it has, because of the pandemic, there is a slowdown. But of course, depending on the developments globally and also here in the Philippines, if travel will open, then the demand for passport application will once again increase. Thank you, Your Honor.
Congresswoman Baronda, do you still have a follow-up question?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Don't you have any budgetary priorities? Why is it this given more importance other than line items such as a personnel allowance?
ASEC Frank, who would reply? ASEC Myla?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, in terms of priority, actually, the consular work is one of the key operating objectives of the department. In terms of the amount, what is in Tier 1 is actually for passport issuance, including personalization of the passport, there's 3.4 billion. For passport issuance, that's also not counting the operating requirements of running the Office of Consular Affairs. In terms of actual split between the PS and MOOE for the whole of the department, the volume of expenditures will still rest on MOOE. In our assessment of the budget of the department, actually the MOOE component comprises 53% of the total net provision, as against the PS component, which is only 40%. So it's still MOOE.
Last, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask how many new passports in 2018 to current yung na-issue nyo?
Sec Frank Ferrer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. For 2018, the actual passport production was 4,484,354. For 2019, it was 4,097,880. And for this year, for 2020, as of June, it was 1,019,931. Obviously, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, you've seen a reduction in the production this year because of the pandemic, as I mentioned. But we believe that once a vaccine is found, travel restrictions are lifted, the global economy has restarted, then certainly the demand for passport will continue to go back to what we have seen for the past 4 years, actually, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ASEC. Mr. Chair, don't have any question, Mr. Chair. Would just like to manifest for the support of the increase of the budget of DFA, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Jam Baronda.
With that, Mr. Chair, I think wala na po tayong mag-interpolate. I would like to move to terminate the
Mr.
budget
Chair,
hearing.
I have been asking to interpolate. This is Congressman Chungalaw of Ifugao.
For a while.
Kanina pa 3 o'clock ako dyan dito nag-observe lang. And
Ay,
I
wait.
have been texting the
Congressman
Secretary.
Chungalaw, I would like... Sige. Anyway, the name of the honorable congressman from Ifugao is not listed, but since he's a very good friend of mine, the chair would give time to the congressman from the lonely province, beautiful province of Ifugao, Congressman Chungalaw. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the meeting started, I was here patiently waiting and have been texting the Secretary and your Secretariat that I should be listed. But anyway, thank you for giving this opportunity to interpolate a colleague in the 12th, 13th, 14th Congress who remains young, one of the congressmen during this time, those times that, and I think, Secretary, you deserve the post of Department of Foreign Affairs, and you deserve all the support of Congress. Now, I will not take 3 minutes siguro sa tanong ko. We have been talking of 3 minutes rule, hindi naman nasusunod. Kanina pa ako nag-observe. But preliminarily, I just wanted to ask the Secretary if the Philippines is a party to the Search and Rescue Convention of 1979.
Search and Rescue Convention.
Secretary?
I'm asking my experts. I'm asking my experts here, Search and Rescue Convention.
To my recollection, yes.
So to our recollection here, it's yes, we are.
Thank you. Because this is in conjunction also to the fact that the Philippines is a part of the UNCLOS, which provide us an obligation to render assistance to incidents in the sea. I'll go straight to my purpose, why I am interested and patiently waiting, because it has something to do with the Gulf Livestock 1 incident of the coast of Japan. Medyo this is very personal to me, Secretary, because the ship captain there is my nephew.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yes, I heard your position to the request of some parties if we can ask North Korea and China to help out in the rescue. And I agree with you that it may perhaps be an insult to Japan. But I wrote a letter. I would like to clarify that for your consideration, if possible, to ask perhaps North Korea and China to help out in their jurisdiction. Hindi sila papasok sa jurisdiction ng Japan because in the trajectory of that incident, mukhang the ship, there's a big probability that the typhoon pushed them beyond the jurisdiction of Japan to the jurisdiction of North Korea and perhaps China. So, wala naman sigurong conflict dyan if we can ask them in their area to conduct a search. I understand medyo mahirap yun, pero I agree with you that hindi sila papasok sa jurisdiction ng Japan. May I know the position of the good secretary?
Secretary
yes,
Locsin?
If I may? Yes, well, I'm very happy to see my old colleague. Those are the best years of my life. But yes, okay, now that you put it in those terms, because I'm just, well, you know me. At the end of the road, we're just persons. And I'm sorry for your loss. I will bring this, Japan is unrelenting in its search, and I will bring this up myself with the ambassador and deal with Tokyo, and then I will ask them about. I'm gonna make that request. I said I'm gonna seek assistance from neighboring countries. And what do you feel about it? And then I'll make my decision to go further and ask these countries. I'm not sure about Korea. Can we do North Korea? I know we have an embassy there. Yeah, we do. Okay, I can assure you. I am not gonna, use international affairs or diplomacy or anything. This is a human concern, humanitarian concern. I will attend to this immediately, and I won't stop. And I'll keep in touch with you on this matter. I'm really sorry for that, for your loss. Really sorry.
Congressman Sugalaw.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that position of the Secretary. I agree with him na we should not let the other countries interfere in the jurisdiction of Japan. But in their jurisdictional water, kung pwede naman sila tutulong sa atin. Because trajectory of the typhoon, I think, obviously has pushed perhaps the vessel beyond the jurisdiction or sea jurisdiction of Japan. So, sana man, they are also parties to the UNCLOS. That's my concern, really. That's why I waited. In behalf also of the other 40 families involved, but this is personal because the captain is the son of my first cousin. and we are very, very close in the plan. I think you understand that. That would be all, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary. You still look as young as when we were in the 12 and 13, 14 Congress. Thank you. See you soon. Thank you, Secretary.
I'm sorry for your loss, and you shouldn't have had to wait. I should have just called you. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you very much. Congressman Chungalao, please also extend our heartfelt condolences to the families there in the province of Ifugao. So there's a motion by Representative Jam Baronda to terminate the budget briefing of the Department of Foreign Affairs. So for in behalf of the chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, Chairman Eric Yap, also the other vice chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, particularly Vice Chairman Jonathan C. Alvarado. There's a motion to terminate. We'd like to thank the very good Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for briefing us your budget proposal for 2021, and we hope that with the Committee on Appropriations, we'll be able to do something to put back those items which the Department of Budget and Management deducted from your original proposal. So there's a motion from Congresswoman Jam Baronda from the City of Love. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Second from the City of Pines, Baguio. This budget briefing of the Department of Foreign Affairs is terminated. The Committee on Appropriations meeting is suspended. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Good
Thank you.
evening, everyone.
Thank you.